A rainy evening in one of China's small towns. Let's take a peek inside a small, unkempt house, where the clicking of keys, computer mouse, and the smell of your favorite soda can be heard throughout the room. A young boy is completely caught up in a computer game. After all, right now he can win or lose. There was one small advantage. The boss's wounds were very slow to heal, and if he and his team didn't utilize this time period, they might lose and die. The playable character of our protagonist was Lu Xun. He was at the head of all the other characters, for a reason. Lu Xun managed to pump himself up a lot in this game and become the strongest character to defeat the main boss without anyone's help. The horned monster didn't even have time to take action. Lu Xun made quick decisions and acted accordingly without giving himself the slightest bit of hesitation. It was a matter of a hat. Lu Xun had managed to defeat a level 102 Minotaur. Everyone congratulated the winner in joy. The guys who had the chance to witness it were cheering at such a crushing victory. However, Lu Xun himself was very happy about his victory and was happily sipping his Coke. He had 2 more rounds to play, and then the guy would complete his order. Sister was proud of her brother, but she was very worried. Lu Xun hadn't slept for 3 whole days. For all the hours, he was just playing around. With such a lifestyle, his health might not be able to take it, but what could possibly go wrong? Lu Xun has accepted the order and must fulfill it so that they have money to study. After all, it won't be long before school starts. My sister understood this, but she could not object, because they had no other source of income. But she was still very worried about her brother. But he didn't want his sister to crumble and smiled encouragingly, beckoning her closer to him. All things considered, Lu Xunyu should save up a certain amount of money for his studies, and then he wouldn't have to play games for money anymore. As her brother asked, the girl left to read a book, and Lu Xun put on his headphones and went back to his game. Lu Xun has to take orders to support himself and his sister. By doing so, he helps other people improve their accounts and complete difficult missions. Their parents left this world early, leaving no life savings at home. Being small and weak, Lu Xun didn't know how to do anything but this. The work is actually very tedious, but he and his sister have enough to live on. Right now, Lu Xun has another order. If he manages to promote this account quickly and sell it profitably, he will make quick money. His character's appearance rating was 100%. And that's already a good part of his success and high value. But the strange darkening in his eyes and numbness in his body kept the guy from concentrating. He couldn't even move his finger or feel anything. Lu Xun couldn't move any part of his body, and no strength was felt at all. Losing consciousness, Lu Xun collapsed onto his keyboard with a crash, unable to resist the feeling. As a backdrop, he could feel the screams of his terrified sister. But in his mind, a completely different view was already opening up. Was he sure he wanted to make such a move now? No, he wasn't. But having made the move, there are no regrets. Lu Xun's yellow eyes opened, observing all the greenery that was beneath him. When the boy really woke up and realized that he was not in his home, he felt a different kind of fear. This clearing was not familiar to him, though there was nothing dangerous in it. Lu Xun noticed that he wasn't even wearing his clothes or his body. Then what was wrong with his face? Luckily, there was a river nearby. The water was so clear that you can see your display there, right down to the details. His new face was very handsome and so familiar. But somehow the eyes remained the same. Images from the past began to pop up in his mind, where he himself had personally created this character, promising him, for this appearance, a lot of money. This place he is in is very similar to the account he created in life. The Tianshuan world. What the hell is he doing inside this game? Maybe he's just sleeping. But if this is a dream, then he should wake up as soon as possible. There was no time to sleep. Lu Xun must take care of his little sister. No matter how much he pinched himself, the attempts were pointless, for he never woke up. Just to look at this situation from the outside, Lu Xun created an account and ended up getting into it himself. There is clearly something wrong with this account. At the same minute, in front of his face, about 5 meters away from him, some girl flew by. She looked pretty enough, like a forest fairy. But perhaps she was also dangerous, for she carried a sword. The girl noticed Lu Xun standing there. One glance was enough to realize, this character has all 100% charm. Lu Xun didn't even need to do anything. His casual, serious appearance so easily attracted the girl flying by, who immediately stopped at the nearest tree, and was the first to start a conversation by saying hello to the young man. Lu Xun saw this girl as a kind of danger, and hoped that she would not attack an ordinary person like him. This game was like a kind of xianxia, Chinese fantasy genre. The stranger didn't even think of pulling out her weapon, only marveling at the high level of Lu Xun. It was a top-class piece, and she didn't even hide her admiration. The young stranger was still standing in the same spot, watching the guy who was also watching her with admiration. The word copy Lu Xun was very embarrassed, but he didn't give any appearance and didn't even utter a single word during this time. He was so embarrassed by the pretty girl's attention in his direction that he was at a loss for words and shyly waved her hand in greeting. People do not value some things, and as a consequence they just wrap them up and throw them away, and they are very precious. It's nice to be such a specimen, but due to the fact that only low-level opponents are encountered, Lu Xun only serves as a springboard to raise their levels. It definitely can't continue like this. If he continues for the sake of having fun with lower-level people who have their own goals, then sooner or later he will just become a victim and be killed by them. She may be the kind of girl who seems modest, but when the time comes, she will show her lecherous character. But what's to hide? Lu Xun himself is a lecherous man who likes to have fun. Although the emotions on Lu Xun's face hadn't changed during this time, he still seemed very attractive to the girl. She was already mentally imagining that she could cultivate and develop with him, and even get her own benefits, and even earn from it. The girl frowned, looking closely at the guy as if remembering something. One day her parents were killed because they accidentally got a magic sword and enhancement methods. Since then, she's had a blood feud with her parents' killers, and her main goal is to destroy and take revenge on those responsible for their deaths. But to do so, she needs to become much stronger. Right now, pair training and this heavy sword is the only hope. And pair training doesn't even require magic, just a handsome partner. The girl made a quick decision. She decided to kidnap this guy. But there was a problem. They could be overtaken by those who were after her. The stranger came closer and closer, and the faster she approached, the Lu Xun shouted louder, begging her to stay away. Lu Xun is just a level 1 scum right now and has nothing but his face. If she suddenly attacked him, he wouldn't be able to respond or even defend himself. Before kidnapping Lu Xun, the girl decided to inquire if he would like to go with her. At such a question, the thought of kidnapping did not even occur to the boy. On the contrary, that the girl might be from a rich family, the stranger became fascinated by Lu Xun when he laughed. His laughter was velvety and gushing, and his smile was so contagious that it would be impossible not to smile back. If the girl looked like she was head over heels in love, Lu Xun was trying to figure out what was wrong. It seemed like his laughter only added to the sympathy. In the old days, he would literally tear his throat out to get a girl's attention, but now it's so simple that it's boring. As it turns out, they all look only at looks. The stranger continued to stand close and stare at the guy, examining every feature of his face and marveling at how perfect his appearance was. The moment of admiration was interrupted by a sense of self-preservation. The girl felt that her pursuers were following her. It was no longer possible to stay where she was. But since Lu Xun got the girl's sympathy, he could risk telling her the whole situation that happened to him, and then go to the nearest town and ask a master to train him. The girl had other plans and immediately embraced the guy, not even giving him a chance to dodge. And the next instant she took off with ease, holding the lad under her like a woman's purse. Lu Xun weighed at least 70 kilograms. This girl definitely didn't have human strength since she could hold another person down with such ease. The woman walking along the forest path with the men immediately smelled the odor of the one being pursued. Surprisingly, none of the men smelled it. Their goal was the same: to kill the girl and take possession of her magic sword. The guys had already wound the same circle several times. Lu Xun was confused, for he didn't understand what the girl was trying to accomplish. He watched her intently, still in her arms, but dared not say anything. Only assumed that the stranger was lost and didn't know where to go herself. It was impossible to continue like this, for Lu Xun also had his own plans. But as soon as he tried to ask her something, he couldn't. The words he said were boo 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 boo. He couldn't speak at all, which was a shame. Then in boredom, he turned his attention to the sword the girl carried carefully behind her back. The sword was called Wedding Dress, and the level was yellow. Lu Xun couldn't look at the rest of the information because of his low level. A yellow-level sword is a real treasure for ordinary Tianquan people. It was amazing that this girl had such a sword, even though she had no idea where to go. But if she had topographic criticality, why was she running so fast? An unpleasant realization threw Lu Xun into a freeze. He realized the girl was being chased. He's a corpse. There are various equipment on the Tianquan continent. Weapons are divided into the following types depending on their level: ordinary, ritual, spiritual, divine, and magic. But for convenience, people call the weapons by color. And in front of you is the golden legendary card. The wedding dress is a yellow ritual weapon. At the beginning of the game, this yellow attribute was the cherished dream of people all over the world. After all, who doesn't love the color yellow? The stranger decided to stop and looked around the two crossroads. Had she gotten lost again? The boy quipped at her, but the girl didn't much like it, and reached for the hilt of her sword. She drew her sword as if to make it clear that no one dared mock her. Lu Xun didn't think of stopping. It looked like she was thinking of hurting the innocent, handsome boy because she couldn't find the right path, but the girl didn't seem intent on hurting him. With her sword, she would be able to find the right path. Where the sword falls is the right way. Once the end of the sword pointed to a certain side, it was clear where they should go. The girl immediately took the boy under her arm and chased in that direction, although the hilt of the sword was pointing the direction in the other direction, which was strange to Lu Xun. It didn't matter where she ran, though, they'd still end up in the city. And for the rest of the way, Lu Xun planned to ride the girl as if she was riding a beautiful horse. They ran quite long and fast, with a view of high mountains and birds singing in the sky in front of them. The girl was very tired from running around like this, but Lu Xun couldn't care less because he was in her hands. After taking a little breather, the stranger once again lifted Lu Xun's body above her, who was begging for her to let him go. However, he didn't resist much, only turning on his charisma and charm. It was the 10th level of beauty. The girl saw him and fell in love with him more and more. His beauty was impossible to resist. She carefully placed the boy on the rock as she planned. This whole escape was really tiring the girl, so she decided to take a little break by sitting down with her boyfriend. They were in no great hurry, for it seems that for a little while they were able to get rid of their pursuit. And then we can see how things will go from there. The girl was surprised at how Lu Xun was reacting to everything that was happening, not angry or worried. After all, she had fled with him from those people, but he was not scared at all, which was strange. They sat in thought for a few minutes, and they had been together for over 2 hours and still hadn't met. So the guy decided to introduce himself. Since they were fleeing, it was important for the guy to know who this female devil who grabbed him and made him a cultivator was. Such a gentle but dangerous person had an equally gentle name, Lily. Of course, it was a made-up name to fool the guy, but why did he tell the girl his real name? Lu Xun had never heard such a name in the Tianquan main branch before, and assumed that it was a trap related to the boss dragon. Could she be killed by the enemies soon? When Lily was little, she wanted to catch a cultivator. Now she did. But she still has to carry a big yellow sword behind her back. She might have died many times at such a young age. After all, this is not an easy life for her at all. The musings were interrupted by a rumbling in Lu Xun's stomach. The boys sat on a rock and looked at each other in silence. The sudden silence was very frightening to the two of them, for it was rather awkward. Suddenly, Lily started pulling something out of the top of her dress. The girl fetched a small bun from her home and graciously offered it to her partner. From her confused look and gestures, it was hard to call this girl a female devil. Lu Xun graciously accepted the meal from the girl's hands. It was obvious that she was very embarrassed. It looked like she had never seen anyone like this man before. There was only one piece of flatbread here, so the guy split it for 2, and gave the other half to Lily, who sat there as if enchanted. Beauty alone made girls fall in love with Lu, so what did such sweet gestures do? The stalkers seemed to have picked up on Lily's trail and she was close by. All they have to do is find her and kill her. When they kill her, Ji's palace will be destroyed and all the treasures will be theirs. Their appearance didn't go unnoticed either, and Lu Xun's loud chewing might have attracted the criminals even more, so Lily dragged the guy into the bushes, covering his mouth with the palm of her hand. But instead of carefully lurking behind the bushes, Lily completely accidentally fell right on top of the guy. Lu Xun didn't seem to be confused at all. He was thirsty and asked if the girl had any water. Although such a question in the 22nd century, if another girl heard such a question, she would ask, where? Lily did have water with her, but was worried about whether Lu would drink from this pitcher. She already had a picture in her mind of him brutally drinking her water from the flask. At this point, she froze, embarrassed to imagine this picture. But when Lu Xun started to drink the water, Lily's expectations were a little bit off, and the hand she was holding her jug in began to tremble altogether. The woman chasing Lily continued to lead the men, relying on her sense of smell. She sensed her target was close at hand. The voices of the pursuers came to the ears of the lurking Lu and Lily. If they were discovered, it would all be over. Lu Xun would now have to use the first resurrection coin. After all, Lily considered him her boyfriend. A blast of icy wind blew across their backs. Goosebumps flickered across their skin, as if foreshadowing a terrifying event. Observing what was happening, Lu Xun concluded that this account wasn't just strange, because there were even spirits here. The groups were quite close to each other. The woman was sure that the one they were looking for was behind those bushes and pointed her finger at him. Lu Xun and Lily tried to hide, as if they wanted to stretch the moment they would be found. The enemies kept coming closer and closer, confident of the girl's whereabouts. There was no way out, for she realized that she would be weaker than these players. Lily's hands began to tremble, and tears flowed from her eyes, realizing the hopelessness of the situation. Lily prepared to die, but she decided that she would capture at least one enemy as revenge. Lu Xun was completely calm, and seeing the girl's anguish, he covered her mouth to prevent her from shrieking unnecessarily. Lily can't even breathe. Lu decided to take control of the whole situation. The girl gave him half a flatbread. As a token of gratitude, Lu will give her the gift of saving her life. After all, as a professional cultivator in Tianxuan, he has 100 accounts. And this blowing of icy wind is very familiar to him. The bandits, as they approached the bushes, smelled a strange odor, so they paused. But whatever it was, they decided for themselves that they could handle anything. The dark shadow began to move closer and closer to the group. And beyond that, a full-fledged ghost rose up before them. They didn't take him seriously, and even looked at the ghost with contrived boredom, wondering what to do with him. In the end, the decision was made to just kill him. The ghost didn't look chagrined, on the contrary. His interest and excitement played out more and more. The people could not do anything against such a creature, and were killed themselves without having time to harm the ghost in any way. Lu still kept his palm on the girl's face, so that she wouldn't even squeak due to fear. Ghost, as expected, still goes by the name of Rookie Killer, and lives up to his name accordingly. After standing over its victims for a moment, the ghost flew away, and Lily tried to comprehend what had just happened. To defeat this spirit, you just need to find the right way, and then even a 3-year-old child can defeat him. Lily was getting seriously nervous, because the spirit was still here, and it could do damage to any player. The ghost continued to fly over the clearing and sniffed out new victims for itself. Lu, as an experienced cultivator, thought the ghost was just a moving bag, and when the ghost discovered them, Lily began to beat hysterically, foreshadowing that they were finished. Only the ghost saw them, then immediately moved towards the boys. Lily was very worried and crying hysterically, but Lu, as a man, felt absolutely confident. He seemed to know what he was doing. The ghost was very big, but Lu Xun was not afraid of him at all and went to meet him himself. This should be an exciting show, but from Lily's side, it looked like the guy just wanted to die. If this ghost destroyed so many people so easily, what will happen to Lu Xun? Lily didn't want the guy to sacrifice himself for her, and yelled in his wake to run away from that monster. But Lu confidently answered the girl not to be afraid, because it wasn't even a monster, and with a smile on his face, he clarified that it was only a ghost. Lily was not comforted by this for a moment, but only frightened even more at the possible threat to their lives. She was so frightened that she just fainted, no matter how hard she tried to steady herself. Lu threw a sympathetic glance at his girlfriend, and in the next instant, he focused all his attention on the ghost, wanting to deal with it quickly. Lu Xun was very satisfied with the blow he had thrown. This fight was definitely something he enjoyed. After all, this ghost is just a gift for a newcomer. Lu Xun put out 2 fingers, preparing to deliver the final blows. He certainly hasn't killed this ghost 1,000 times, but the 998th time is. The ghost had no chance at all, and was destroyed by Lu Xun, who only used 2 attacks. Lu Xun had managed to get 666 experience points for killing the mountain ghost. Satisfied, he got down to earth, and decided to check his account. Killing baddies also, as it turned out, gives experience to the player. Of course, this is a new account, although there are few points, but the experience gained can still increase the level. The bad thing is that Lu does not have any martial arts. He should definitely find a special school and learn new techniques. Lily was alive, Lu could tell by her heaving chest. He gently touched his finger to her face, telling her that everything was already okay, and there was nothing to be afraid of. But suddenly the most lewd things started visiting his head, where he saw Lily in a tight dress with lush forms. Realizing this, he even felt ashamed that he was visualizing an innocent girl in such a way. A real man should be brave enough to seduce a woman. Leng Xiang's black stockings are just what Lu Xunyu needs. Suddenly, like after a nightmare dream, the girl woke up, immediately wondering if the ghost was gone. Lu had sorted it all out, and was happy to let Lily know it, giving her his hand to make it easier for her to stand up. Lily was thrilled that Lu was the one to deal with the ghost. The boy noticed that the girl sympathized with him a little too much, and so he decided to hurry up because it wasn't over yet. It seemed as if at that moment the girl would go with him to the ends of the earth. Lu planned to pick up all of the enemy's gear. He didn't need much, so he offered to take the rest to Lily. Seeing the plethora of money and the opportunity to sell equipment she didn't need, Lily ran to the corpses in joy to get weapons. Lily picked up the bulk of the equipment, while Lu only took 2 swords and a book. The book had some pretty good techniques in it, but with strange names. Lily recommended selling the book, since it was useless without an experienced teacher. Lu's extra techniques never hurt, and of course he decided to learn them. Right on the fly, the information from the book was assimilated into his mind. Lu Xun was now much stronger than just a rookie. After all, he had learned the Will of the Hawk, a new and unfamiliar fighting technique. He's only looked at the book once, and he's already studied it all. Lily dared to assume that there was a once-in-a-hundred-years martial arts genius right next to her. Lily's sympathy for Lu Xun was growing very quickly. The guy was already starting to fear that it might grow so much that the girl wouldn't be able to just contain it. It was like this. The sympathy was so high that the girl didn't even try to hide the fact that she liked Lu. She wished for one thing, to cultivate together with Lu Xun. Lu Xun realized that if it came to something more, he wouldn't be able to defend himself against Lily even with the techniques he had learned. Or would it entice her even more? All the way he squinted at his companion, and it didn't escape her notice. She found it odd that the guy didn't ask why she was being stalked, and voiced her thoughts out loud. Lu assumed that she was being persecuted because she was catching people and forcing them to become her cultivators. Without any hints.
But such a hint made her very angry. After all, it was Lu who was her only cultivator.
For such a rude hint, she almost... That went to shouting. And the guy only smiled back at her, waiting for her to speak. But seeing this guy's 10th level of beauty, the girl was willing to be patient and not argue for the sake of such a cute face. There was no point in talking about it anymore, for they saw the city standing before them. It was County City. The girl immediately grabbed the guy by the collar and dragged him somewhere to the side. Lu didn't even resist, and Lily bragged about how well-oriented she was, because she just wanted to get to County. But she went somewhere wrong again and froze, looking at the sign. Lu Xun was quite familiar with the newcomer village, as it was popularly called. Once he asked a girl, she said that Tianshan was now in the year 3997. But during the open play testing, Yu Tianshan was in the year 4000. And in this place, Lu had been reborn about 100 times. The first thing to do would be to find a hotel to rest. Lily hadn't bathed in a long time, but she didn't know how to tell her boyfriend. They didn't wander around the city for long. Lu Xun easily found an inn, and 10 minutes later, they were there. From his memory, it wasn't a bad hotel, the quality good and the price reasonable. Lily began to feel as if Lu cared about her. Before entering, the hotel staff asked if the guests wanted to stay, or if they were coming for a short stay. Of course, they were going to get a room to stay in. Seeing that the guy and girl came together, they made sure to clarify whether they wanted a room with 2 rooms or 1. Lu Xun did not reply and asked what Lily thought about it, but she blushed like a little girl and turned away so that the guy wouldn't see it. Through her embarrassment, she still replied that she wanted a hotel room with 1 room, but Lu Xun rudely interrupted her, ordering 2 rooms after all. At this moment, the girl blushed even more, only now because of the awkwardness of the situation. An attendant graciously escorted the visitors up the steps. Lu, in turn, reprimanded the girl for her behavior. If they'd gotten a 1-room suite, it would have been a 404 error, and he asked her not to bother him. But all she did was question why that was so. Lily should have been more serious. Some woman entered the inn, on the move, asking if the owner had a room available. For some reason, her appearance caught Lu Xun's attention. This was Mu Junyan, the main one in the Qinmu County Beginners Village, and also the leader of the Damen School. Furthermore, she was as high as level 985. The attendant warned that he would first escort his guests to the room, and then return to the woman. She decided not to stand and sat down on the nearest bench, which bent under her weight. It seemed that if she even moved, the bench would crack. Lu saw that she was quite strong, but her authority wasn't enough for her to be his mentor. A woman sat in the very corner, and also turned her attention to the newcomers. And especially the sword wedding dress caught her attention. At this weapon, she paused her intense gaze of red eyes to... Lu Xun was resting on his bed and thinking about the fact that he was suddenly reborn in this world. But fortunately, he had managed to buy insurance, so after his death, his sister should live without worries. He supposed she must be very sad right now, but the sister must be strong, because in the future she will be alone. But he must be strong too. He was just lying there awake, so he heard the door creak open and someone enter his room. Lily warned him that she was going to sell guns and suggested that the guy come with her. Lu had time to assume that the girl was afraid he would run away while she was selling weapons, but he obviously wasn't going anywhere. so Lily had nothing to worry about. He didn't even have anywhere to go. But that was another thing. It was her first time going to places like this, so she didn't know what she should do yet. What if the pawnbroker cheated her? So she once again suggested that the guy go with her and the money be split in half. Lu Xun doesn't mind going with her, but he doesn't need her money. He needs something else. He didn't voice what he wanted right away. Lily became very agitated and covered her shoulders with her hands. Lu slowly got up from his seat, put his arm around Lily and asked her to take off her veil. He wanted to see her face. This request made her very excited, and she began to refer to the fact that she needed to comb her hair and wash her face first. The guy had only meant it as a joke, and now he felt very awkward. The veil was so thin, could it really hide anything? He didn't understand what girls had in mind. A moment later, the girl knocked delicately on the door and returned, already without her veil. She looked simply adorable, and hoped Lu hadn't changed her mind after all. He hasn't changed his mind, but what if they put him in jail? Then he'll lose 3 years. But what did it mean, going to jail? Lu Xun still rebuked the girl for stealing it, and said bluntly that she shouldn't go after cultivators. After all, she was young, and would have many opportunities to become stronger. Lily had a face like a child, but shapes like an adult. If they went out into the city together, people would say she was an elementary school student. Then Lu would definitely go to jail. Lily realized what the guy was thinking and started to object that she wasn't little at all and was old enough. Their discussion was interrupted by a knock on the door. Lily listened and noted the fact that it was easy to get in here. And if it was an enemy, she probably couldn't handle it. Lu Xun felt that Mu Yunyan was behind the door, and there seemed to be no malicious intent. Then what was she doing here? The next moment, Lu headed for the door. Without any greeting, he immediately clarified what the woman needed here. When she saw Lu Xun, Yan felt as if she was speechless by his beauty. She literally stared at the guy and looked at him intently, as if hypnotized, but soon gathered herself together and replied that she didn't need anything. And then she left, saying she was just lost. The guy who opened the door for her, he struck her as something. Didn't she have the guts? The woman left, but she certainly didn't get the wrong door, except that Lily didn't understand what Lu Xun meant. Surely Lily must have seen a man who had gotten the wrong door. Would he knock? This woman clearly had a motive. Before leaving, it could be seen that the woman glanced specifically at Lily. Lily was upset that she shouldn't have taken off her veil, and Lu Xun looked at her reprehensibly, not understanding female logic. Lu Xun took another look at the girl in her sword wedding dress. There was new information. As it turned out, this sword was a distraction for low-level masters. The guy once again made sure that this was the familiar world of Tianshuan. The Tuanxian world is a place dominated by cultivators. They master different techniques and become strong, having more advantages over others. Of course, murder, treasure theft, the struggle between good and evil are all part and parcel of the cultivator world. However, it happens everywhere. But it's really not that bad. Many cultivators are conscientious, helping others and promoting reconciliation in every way possible. Cultivators in this world have the power of celestials, and they are willing to sacrifice their lives for ordinary people. Noble people are willing to fight injustice and guide others to the righteous path. In this world, Lu Xun felt comfortable. Thanks to this trick, masters with a level lower than Mu Junyan wouldn't be able to realize that this weapon was magical. Thus, they wouldn't have any intentions of stealing it. Lily still didn't understand what the guy meant or what he was thinking, so she took his hand and led him into the pawn shop. She felt no guilt in forcibly dragging him out of the inn, for he had promised her himself. Protecting the weak is the main goal of cultivators in the Tianchenshan world. But since Mu Zhuyan appeared here, Zhan here is one of the good starting questers of the Tianchenshan world. We just have to wait for the opportunity, and then Lu Xun will be able to customize this world for himself. The streets of the city were filled with townspeople going about their business and carrying goods for sale. Lily walked happily out of the pawn shop, because now she had a lot of money. She could forget about hunger. Lu jokingly hinted to her that she had so much money, and she wouldn't even invite him to dinner. But she didn't even think of refusing, and immediately offered to go out to eat right away. He could choose anything he wanted for 1 silver coin. Did the girl notice something strange? Just what did Lu Xun mean by that? He decided to recall the woman's strange visit, for she looked very doubtful. Lily wanted to tell her boyfriend that too, except she forgot. So Lily asked what was suspicious about the woman. Lu looked at the girl strangely, thinking about the fact that her breasts had grown, but her brain didn't seem to have. For some reason, Lily was very surprised by the fact that that woman was a cultivator. The girl was so surprised that she shouted at the top of her voice, and Lu Xun was almost deafened by her shout. For the guys, her appearance was a good opportunity, so it was better for them not to stand out. Lily still had one question: how did Lu know all this? To explain his speculation, he pointed to the sheath of her sword. She tried to discern and understand what the guy meant, but she hadn't noticed anything that Lu had hinted at. He asked her a simple question, but she couldn't even answer it, whether she noticed or not. Like a disappointed teacher in his student, Lu tiredly began to explain that the sword was a trick for ordinary people. In their eyes, it was an unremarkable weapon. Lily assumed that if she asked that woman to be her apprentice, no one could hurt her, and she would avenge her parents. In her eyes, Lu was a very cool and intelligent man who could notice any little thing. She seemed ready to take him to the heavens. Only one detail is very important. Will the master choose Lily to be his apprentice? From under the balcony, someone's voices were heard. On the evening of the 15th day, the first lunar month, one must not leave the house. The gates of hell will open. One must not ask not about life, not about death. This text was duplicated several times and said quite to the inhabitants. As it turned out, today was the festival of hungry spirits. Men were walking the streets and announcing it in a loud voice and throwing papers around. Lu Xun and Lily looked at each other strangely. The girl was covering her chest as usual, touching the flower on her dress. Tonight, chances are her mom and dad could reincarnate. As they say, good things are rewarded. Good people do get good in return, Lily said sadly to herself. Lu didn't know for sure, but surely good things were coming back. At least his sister got the insurance money, and when she graduated from university, she wouldn't need anything. From the executive memories of her sister, Lily called out to Lu Xun. The sword on the table began to emit a bright red light. The magic weapon vibrates, the spirits rage, a kind of warning that danger is coming. If Lu Xun is not wrong, now is their chance. At this hour, people were not allowed to go out, but the guy did not pay attention to it and pulled the girl behind him, saying that it was beautiful outside. After all, there's going to be a lot of hell out there tonight. No wonder the girl was stubborn and didn't want to go with him. Now Lily was ready to cry from fear, but Lu was smiling at her as if nothing had happened. There were indeed a lot of different spirits on the street. The spirits of the Tianxian world are different from the spirits in the real world. They are born out of many offenses, not just one. The Hungry Spirits Festival in Tianxiang is a spirit-killing competition. The more spirits you kill, the more experience you get. Therefore, a person who has a lot of experience in killing spirits feels like a fish in water. Lily grimaced, but there was nothing she could do since Lu was stronger than her. The girl was very afraid, but they should take the opportunity today. We'll have to go, even if they don't feel like it. Before they left, Lu had to make sure she was really there. To make it easier for the girl, the boy just picked her up on his shoulder and carried her along. Some residents were already in full swing fighting the ghosts, but the ghosts seemed to be winning so far. It looks like the one Lu is looking for is there. If his hunch was correct, he would just wait for Mu Yunyan to appear. And then she would appear. This is the coolest initial quest ever. You can't go wrong with them. Lily seemed to have lost consciousness and didn't even realize where Lu Xun was carrying her and what she was saying. But when she woke up, Lily asked indignantly where he was taking her. He was going straight to the cultivator to ask him to be an apprentice. Finding a cultivator and becoming his apprentice is her only chance. Lily must cheer up and never chicken out again. Luckily, she was here on her own. Mu Yunyan really deserves the title of cultivator. When the spirits are so rampaging, she just sits and guards the gate to protect the common people. She noticed the uninvited guests and turned to them to clarify what they wanted. Lily marveled at the fact that she was snapping seeds. The girl was still hanging on Lu's shoulder, so he spoke to the cultivator. The carnage was still going on. Spirits and people were flying out of the crowd. In the center of the carnage, a girl who looked like a cat was riding over the heads of the ghosts. At least her eyes and pupils looked like a cat's, and the way she moved and dressed reminded me of a cat. In an instant, the girl was distracted from the carnage and raised her feline eyes towards where Lu Xun stood. In the eyes of all the girls, the guy seemed to radiate a golden light, and poor Lily was blinded by it as she stood too close to him. Catgirl didn't understand where this handsome man had come from, but she was definitely impressed by his beauty and charisma. It seemed as if neither ghosts nor carnage, nor all the experience she could extract, interested her anymore. All her attention was fixated on the guy she had just seen. Still, she wasn't going to let herself get hurt, and turned back to the battle addressing the ghosts. That's how unapologetically she called the ghosts all cowards. Her body was literally seething with anger, and a wakizashi appeared in her hands. With her weapon, she promised that she would shred all the ghosts to pieces. She kept her promises, and immediately attacked her enemies mercilessly. Watching this, Lu was literally shedding tears, because so much experience and it's all not his. The girl had destroyed so many ghosts with a single wakizashi blade. Lu Xun had never seen such a thing even at level 30. Perhaps she had started at level 40. Catgirl noticed that the audience had been watching her for half a day. Folding her arms at her sides, she paced angrily toward the guy, and immediately poked her finger at him, letting him know she'd noticed everything. The height difference between them was huge to the point of laughter. Lu looked calm and even a little upset, while the girl looked angry like his disgruntled teacher. The silence was awkward, and she knew why. She was not willing to concede and immediately took off to show her advantage. Catgirl has been looking for a beautiful horse for a long time, so she offered Lu Xun to be her horse. Do you think he'll accept? So-called demons with enlightened spiritual wisdom. Just like the fairy tales said, accidentally releasing their spiritual wisdom, they absorbed the powers of the sun and moon to refine their body and spirit. The energies of the sun and moon were not well mastered, so they had to get up at dawn. 100 years later, their path of practice is much more difficult, and the time they spend improving is much longer. It takes tens, hundreds of years to achieve results. But over that long period of time, they have been getting better all the time, and finally became a support for the gods. And where is it that a man becomes a horse? It's so rare to use a man as a riding animal, and it's not right at all, because some people pay in full and some pay next to nothing. Such a fate would clearly not suit Lu Xun. With his talents, he expected to be more than just a riding horse. The girl presented such an opportunity to Lu as an honor. Just to think of carrying Manhwa on his back. Manhwa is a great monster. The image of the girl with cat ears was memorized by people. Countless sand sculptures ran after her. Even if someone wanted to carry her, it definitely wouldn't be Lu Xun. Such a suggestion made him angry at all, but he replied with a completely calm face. The girl was immediately bowed to by Mu Yunyan, offering her candidacy for this role. Lily marveled at the fact that this girl was a mistress, and yet so small. Such a thing could be against the rules, but there are so many rules, so why not break one? Mu Yunyan could say whatever he wanted, but not let the elders hear it. Who should Manhwa be afraid of anyway? After all, it's her other older sister's words, so she'll get the consequences. But Manhwa's offer to Lu was still on the table. She was willing to give him anything he wanted, be it a weapon or a panacea that had no flaws. Lily was a little tense and excited, for she didn't even know if Lu Xun would agree to this. His smile has the power to charm anyone, which means he has an idea in his head. The girls looked at him excitedly, wondering how such a handsome man could even exist. Before giving any answer, he clarified how strong Manhwa was. The girl came here to get rid of the Ghost King. Just recently, 100 ghosts could be observed, and she destroyed all of them personally. Naturally, she is strong. If she is powerful, are her people also very powerful? Lu Xun wanted to see for himself. He had just the perfect opportunity to enter the Manhwa family. It would be foolish to miss this opportunity. But the fact that Lu was asking a lot of questions really and truly disliked Manhwa. But as soon as he looked at the girl again with his flawless gaze, she immediately melted under his gaze and became embarrassed like a schoolgirl in front of a high school student. Of course, she couldn't agree to his terms now. And now it's Lily's turn. She must speak quickly and intelligently, for she must be accepted as a student. As soon as the moment came to say anything at all, she was completely confused and very excited.
There was nothing to do. Lu Xun would have to take full responsibility again. Fortunately, he had bargained a lot before, so it should go well.
So he decided to briefly tell the tragic story of Lily, which, as they say, shook the whole world. Lu even shed a tear to maintain the effect. After all, her fate was so heavy that her little shoulders might not be able to bear the burden. The boy's sadness spread to the other girls. They looked at Lily and Lu with regret. Realizing the gravity of her fate, Lily herself cried in addition, which was definitely unnecessary. After all, she needed to be more serious. And the last step, she has to bow to be accepted as an apprentice for sure. So Lu touched the back of her head to make it clear. The boy bowed himself, but the girl was standing still, as if she didn't understand what she should do. As he kept his hand still on the back of her head, he felt his bone crunch hard. Lily stood there smiling as if it wasn't about her at all, and Lu was dying of shame because of the girl. Finally realizing she had something to say, Lily expressed her gratitude to Mistress, for she had eliminated the ghosts of the past to sneak into heaven, and had managed to apply a disguise to her dress. Lily thought all these people should all be members of the righteous immortal clan. Zili would like to invite Madame to pass through the fairy gate. Lu Xun was very happy that Lily, in such a short period of time, had learned how to answer after all. Only, after listening more closely to the words, Lu Xun hesitated, and Mao Nonbei laughed as if she had been told a joke rather than a serious speech. Lily felt as stupid as possible in this situation, as if she had actually said the wrong thing. Mao Nonbei did have the grace to explain the reason for her laughter after all. It was because her old lady was from the demon clan. Lu Xun continued to stand stone-faced and listened intently, and Lily didn't even try to hide her emotions. Mao Nonbei is a name full of danger, but she helped Lily a lot once, which isn't like her at all. Either way, we need to quickly decide what to do next. Looking to Lu for an answer, Lily did see it. A nod of approval followed, which means she can still act on her own. Lily understood everything, and the next moment fell on her knees, touching her forehead to the ground, expressing her sincere homage to her mistress. Mao Nonbei didn't expect such actions from Lily, for the situation was becoming more serious. Mistress smirked. Now Lily simply had no right to retract her words. The first thing Mao Nonbei decided to do was to inspect the girl's improvement skills. Mu Yunyan asked the girl to stand up. Right now, she shouldn't be afraid of anything or think about anything because she's just being investigated. Yan pointed her fingers towards Lily's forehead, and in the next instant, the place lit up with a bright blue light. Mao Nonbei started counting the circles that appeared near the girl, and counted as many as 8 circles. That's only 1 lap less than Mao Nonbei herself. A girl like this could be made into a jade. Lu squinted suspiciously. It looked like Lily wasn't telling him something. After all, 8 circles was a real talent. The result definitely pleased Lily herself, for it was a very good sign. The girl was indeed accepted, and she was accepted very easily. But in the next few days, Lily had a lot of work to do. Lily was overjoyed at this successful outcome, and was almost jumping for joy. Mao Nonbei herself was surprised that such a girl had as many as 8 circles. If she has so many, how many circles does Lu have? This naturally interested everyone, so Lu Xun also checked. Everyone was eagerly awaiting the result, and especially Lily. There was only 1 circle formed near Lu Xun. The girls, and including Lu Xun, were amazed that a handsome boy like him only had 1 lap. However, Lu knew about it, but had forgotten about it, and it made him feel a little bad. The thing was, he had spent all his resources and points just on charms. At this point, in front of all the girls, he just looked worthless, for he was a blank slate with a pretty face. In the morning, they decided to get some supplies and afterward returned to Zuman. Lily gave Lu her word that she would study hard and improve her skills, which Lu had high hopes for it took a bit of sweat for them to sign up as apprentices. Lily still didn't know what the demon clan looked like on the inside, and if Lu would be hunted or bullied. Lily will train even harder to defend her companion. In these thoughts and vowing to himself, he fell a little behind Lu Xun, but soon caught up. There are countless clans on the Tiancheng continent, of which there are 4 main families that lead the right path. The first of them is Wang Jianshan. After them is Chuan Shanyu. King Tianzong is next, and also Luo Tianzong. All of these 4 clans can act alone or pair up. The first 2 clans seem to disagree a lot. The other 2 are on fairly cordial terms. Wang Jianshan believes that 10,000 swords converge to 1. It is necessary to comprehend the art of swordsmanship using 10,000 swords. But Chuan Shan says that 1 sword circumvents all laws. One should use 1 sword all one's life. But in reality, both came from the same family. Because they held different views of perfection, they were divided. As for Qing Tianzong and Lo Tianzong, those 2 just like to mess around with each other. They have nothing in common. Finally, let's move on to the demons that head the 3 magic gates. Mo Zong is the eldest of them, Chun Chuling is the middle one, and Wu Zishan is the youngest. One thing they all have in common is that they are very straightforward. Our guys have finally packed up and bought up everything they need. Now they can head to Zongmen. Right now, the demon clan is just recruiting new recruits. One thing Lily was worried about was how would they carry such a huge bag this far. Mu Yunyan seemed to know how, for she wasn't worried about it at all. To carry such huge things, she used her special ring that was worn on her index finger. The green ring was beautiful, but its main feature was that it was magical. All the things that were behind Yan, the ring absorbed into itself. The backpack was nowhere to be seen. Lily was amazed at the trick, and Lu was still stony-faced, glancing at his companion. Once things were packed, it was time to set off. Lu was only worried about one thing. How would her Edgeworth sword be able to support such a large body?
Near Mu Yunyan, the most real magic was happening. Now even Lu didn't look indifferent to what was happening.
After all, they could watch her sword appear. Few people had ever seen such a sight. With a single jump, Yan found herself in flight and was already flying on her designated course, and the guys were still standing on the ground. It looked as if she had abandoned them, for how they were to get there was unclear. But Mao Nonbei knew what to do in such a situation, and pulled out her paper but magical bird. In one motion, the paper turned into a real stork, which was many times larger than these people. Mao Nonbei kindly invited her traveling companions to fly with her. The girls only needed one jump to climb up to the stork. But Lu had to carry a ladder because he couldn't jump high. Barely, he still made it out to the bird, who waited patiently for him. Everyone got as far as they could, Yan standing on her sword, which was several times smaller than her, and the boys on the stork, which was of enormous size. On it, they looked like fleas from afar. Practitioners cannot judge whether the sword will break in common sense. The flying sword is called a feather and contains good intentions. Mao Nonbei handed Lily a scroll with the demon clan's water exercises. A girl like this would be able to learn, but Lu Xun would not be able to cope with such knowledge. Before he became Mao Nonbei's horse, he had nothing to do with the clan. Lu Xun even felt a little saddened by such rebukes. If he can't study such a scroll, can he even touch Xianjia Kung Fu? In such a request, it's very important to make a dog face to definitely agree. Of course, Mao Nonbei was charmed once again by Lu's beauty, and had no problem giving the scroll to him. Even though her name was Mao Nonbei, Lu still knew there was a kind of old imbi. They're usually referred to as the sons of tough moms who are allowed everything. Now the scroll was in Lu Xun's hands. Who could refuse Bai Mi's skills? Certainly not our hero. Lu Xun immediately studied Jiguo's nutrition. But there was zero progress. It was a shame that you can't pick any exercises for a perfect start. But his sensations were much better now. If Lu agreed to be Mao Nonbei's horse, she would be able to make his life a lot easier, but the boy replied, "Not now." But becoming Mao Nonbei's horse is a direct path to entering her office in the most sacred place of the demon clan. Even disciples and elders are not allowed to enter. Lily questioned whether Lu Xun was really going to the demon clan for the sake of studying. His place where he is going is that very office. There are only 3 places in the Tianqian continent that are impossible to enter. The demon clan's office is one of them. This is Mo Zong's office. Getting in is only the beginning. Currently, the difficulty is that millions have tried to become a master's disciple, but only one has been accepted. And this guy died because of a diseased liver. Lu Xun was completely shocked when he heard the news, but he never thought he would be in a similar situation. Since he wants to become an apprentice of the demon clan, he must abide by the rules and not act thoughtlessly. The most important thing to remember is that you can't become a disciple of Mistress Yan's servant. Such a rule definitely confused Mao Nonbei. After all, there wasn't even such a rule, and it wasn't a problem. Mu Yan continued to talk about the rules of the clan, and Mao Nonbei was seething with anger and tried to restrain herself from saying something offensive. Mo Zong really does follow all the rules issued by the master of the cabinet. Finally, the rules were done with, because there were more important things. The demon clan is divided into 3 areas: the outer gate, the inner gate, and the study. Lily was assigned to the outer gate. Mu Junyan is a disciple of the inner gate, and Mao Nonbei is a disciple of Master Teacher himself. Even her horse belongs to the inner gate. After the phrase, "my horse," the girl's intentions were obvious, which wasn't very happy for Lu. Lily was a little surprised that they would have to study in the clan as well. But when speaking of a teacher, Mao Nonbei did not mean teacher in the literal sense of the word. It is just that this man likes to be called so, and ordinary disciples are unable to understand his teachings. Lu was skeptical of her words, for this monster could no longer be saved. No one really knows how strong he is. It was once said, and if this gentleman is not in charge, the live management broadcast will be turned upside down. Take it out after you're done eating, and eat it after you're done eating. That's his style. Divvy up the food and booze. Behind such conversations, the group arrived at the site. Lily tried to see something, but there was nothing to be seen but huge mountains and trees. It wasn't surprising, though, that the girl couldn't see anything. The clan was hiding, and not everyone could see it, and if anyone did see it, there would be no survivors. The paper bird hit the water, and the closer it was to the water, the faster it disintegrated into pieces. Magical bits of paper were everywhere, much to Lily's surprise. Yan offered to give something to Lu Xun, since her token would only let her through. From under her armpit, the girl pulled out a pink cat's paw. Mao Nonbei chose to say that pharmacy was laid down by her teacher. The calm water turned into a very real funnel, which opened up in front of the guys. Mao Nonbei was impressed by Lu Xun's equanimity and calmness, and asked again if he wanted to be her horse. But he still did not give a specific answer, only that he would consider her proposal. His strength isn't enough. He spent all his points on looks. All the women will only be waiting for his body, so Lu should get to training as soon as possible. Otherwise, sooner or later, Lu Xun will turn into a boy for women's lust, and that's a fate he can't bear. Lily concentrated on her surroundings. Every moment of this trip was very surprising to her, for it was the first time she had seen something like this. The demon clan looked extraordinary and was located in the heart of the cliff. The grandeur of the clan building was incredibly impressive, even those as indifferent as Lu Xun, for he too was here for the first time. As soon as he flew in, he looked for the bloody sea he had heard so much about. The rules don't matter, but it's important to realize one thing. The journey through heaven and earth is worthy of one's own heart. This is exactly what the master taught Manhwa. Lu questioned the fact that they were in a demon clan. Something clearly didn't add up. Lily turned her attention to the strange mountain and showed it to Lu. Lu Xun glanced at her with some indifference, although this island with a mountain was indeed very strange. Lu noted that other mountains looked like swords, so why did this one look like a scabbard? This mountain had an interesting origin. Yan seemed to know about it. Of course, such mysterious information got Lily and Lu interested in how unusual the mountain and its history could be. The origin of this game is extremely great because it is not small, and not small because it is great. Listening to Yan's nonsense, Manhwa didn't want to listen anymore, and angrily tapped the girl on the forehead. And indeed, the master was talking nonsense. Even Lu last heard such nonsense. Manhwa continued her story. She didn't know the origin of this mountain, but this is the new Jiaying Peak. Therefore, it is better not to listen to Mu Yunyan's nonsense. It was amazing to Lily that older people could make up things like that. Stork and Sword Yan were beginning to land in the clan building. The clan members who were standing below cheered at the top of their voices as they welcomed the young master back to the clan. Again, to get down to the bottom, the girls only needed to jump off, and Lu Xun once again needed the help of a ladder. Manhwa immediately ordered Elder Chu Shui to be summoned, with the news that the newcomers had arrived. The woman behind immediately exclaimed to the young master, "This woman is Elder Mo Zong Qiu Shui." She couldn't wait to see the newcomers that Manhwa had displaced. At the same moment, she noticed the incredible beauty of a young man. She did not even hide her embarrassment and admiration for him. The mere sight of Lu Xun brought even masters out of their normal state, making them look at him and evoking unusual emotions of sympathy. Qiu Shui no longer paid attention to the young master or anyone else. She immediately turned to Lu Xun, while he excitedly stared at her cleavage. Such glances Manhwa wasn't even going to tolerate, and flew up between the guys, making it clear that Lu Xun belonged to her. This was the first time Qiu Shui had seen a person being someone's horse, and she didn't hide her surprise. However, Manhwa wasn't a pushover either if she was able to recruit such a person to her with a horse. Only the real disciple was forgotten about. Yan had specifically brought Lily, reminding her that the girl was talented and had 8 circles. Lily felt somehow even uncomfortable and completely unnecessary. Seeing the real disciple, Qiu Shui immediately introduced herself and warned that Lily could approach her for any questions, as well as worship her as a teacher. But the light that Lu Xun was emitting prevented Qiu Shui from looking properly. Therefore, the woman turned her attention back to the young man, wondering how many circles Lu Xun had.
Manhwa was embarrassed to even answer, so she just pointed her finger, expressing all skepticism.
Only instead of just 1, the guys thought that Lu Xun was the owner of 10 circles, and were already resenting how this was even possible. Such a thing was very surprising. The clan members had already seen Lu as a true talent, an immortal who had come to this world. But to finish this admiration, Manhwa clarified aloud that Lu was the owner of 1 circle. Such a fact made him very confused. All of the clan members immediately lost their attention and walked away. This was definitely a great loss for Qiu Shui. If he passed the test, he could join the clan. Only Manhwa didn't understand why he would rather be an apprentice than her riding horse. But it was only a question, and subsequently he had another question he wanted to ask. Lu Xun was curious. What if he wanted to become the master's disciple? Of course, everyone reacted very skeptically to this, saying that he has nothing but a pretty face, or he's just kidding. And such a question made Manhwa laugh, for she had only seen Lu Xun as her favorite horse. The master accepts disciples for various reasons. Manhwa he accepted because she loves cats, and he wanted to have a cat demon among his disciples. Lu Xun had scrutinized his discipleship strategies back in his past life. As long as the conditions remained the same, he would not fail. To become a disciple, there are 3 conditions. The first is that one must be immortal who has not been perfected. Second, the apprentice must not be over 30. So far, Lu had met both criteria. And most importantly, the third requirement is to jump off this place and survive. For some reason, at the word survive, everyone became very excited. A chill seemed to run down their skin. After all, even those cultivators will die if they jump off from there. Without magic tools, even elders will die. The altitude is 180,000 miles. A mountain of sword sheaths. This frightened everyone, but not Lu Xun, as if this person already had some sort of plan. At that instant, a sign with a special task appeared. Worshipping the small Hushan cabinet. Everything seemed to be going as Lu Xun had planned. Becoming a master's apprentice is certainly not easy, but it's entirely possible. Lu had more determination than ever, and immediately headed towards the cliff. The girls tried to dissuade the guy from doing such a rash thing. After all, being Manhwa racehorse wasn't bad either. Seniority, at least on the same level as Chu Shui. The woman pretended not to understand why it wasn't attributed here at all. But our hero listened to no one but himself, so he said goodbye to his acquaintances. He ran away toward the cliff, hearing pleas to stop. Manhwa ran after him, asking him to come to his senses for her sake. Behind the girl, others also ran after her. But for some reason, they suddenly stopped. None of the runners could even move. It was getting harder and harder to run. They could only watch Lu Xun elegantly hanging over the abyss with fear and worry. He seemed to know what he was doing, for he jumped with ease and even some pleasure. He jumped as if he were on the sea and jumping from a pier, not a cliff. And no one could prevent it. The girls only looked at him disappointedly. Lily couldn't contain her emotions and cried. She was sorry to lose such a friend, for he had done so much for her, and she hadn't even had time to thank him. Manhwa was in sorrow, and in some disappointment for Lu choosing death over the fate of her horse. Only there was a strange incongruity. Why, when he jumped, did an unknown force stop everyone running after him? But it was only now that they could go to the cliff and see what finally happened. Manhwa wanted to see only living people while she lived, and corpses only after she died. And she couldn't let Lu Xun die. But the question still lingered in her mind. What was that power? At such a passing, all the Summit Lords rushed right into the epicenter of events. Lu Xun was already lying on the ground, Manhwa thought. The brat caused quite a stir, but, the master was not in the mountains. All his actions were in vain. It was a pity about such a handsome boy. He died for nothing. At such an event, other masters would immediately show up. Shen was once again behind the backs of his entourage, which greatly annoyed Manhwa. Shen had no body hair because of his practice with fire. Manhwa dared to speculate that Shen was also attracted by the unknown force that appeared during his fall. But did he see the source of that power? Shen possessed great strength, but even with that strength he couldn't see anything. It was left to speculate that Lu Xun was hiding some sort of identity, and perhaps Manhwa had run into trouble. Suddenly, something attracted her to Lu Xun's body, and to test her hunch she immediately ran up to him. It was obvious that the guy was still alive. His pulse was beating faintly but clearly. He had very little strength left, and 2 out of 3 possible resurrections. Manhwa was really shocked that the guy didn't die after all. After all, his outcome was practically a foregone conclusion. The only thing I don't understand is why he did it when the master was gone. The master wasn't here, and no one could make decisions for him. But either way, they can put it back together. They should listen to Manhwa's second elder sister. She should probably have heard about everything by now. Several circles appeared above Lu Xun's body. It was reported that the gentleman said he could. This message was like a ghostly hope for everyone. The special task of worshipping Hushang's little office was successfully completed. Behind the high cliffs and bamboo vegetation, the backside of Mozong's forbidden territory was hidden from prying eyes. Lily walked up the steps of the forbidden territory without much difficulty. She was very concerned about Lu Xun's well-being. Fortunately, he had been feeling much better lately. The girl was looking forward to seeing him, for she had managed to become seriously attached to him lately. At the same spot, Lily met the master sitting in the same pose for the umpteenth time. She was older than Lily in power and status, so the girl showed proper respect. She is the second apprentice of the master, and also the young master's sister. This seemed rather strange on Lily's part, for whenever she appeared at this place, the older one was always here. Master Maoshi had warned that this girl didn't like to be disturbed. I wondered how long this girl would stay here, and when she would finish meditating. But it would be strange to stay and watch her. Walking deeper into the forbidden area, Lily encountered Manhwa sleeping on a bench, who instead of snoring was making cat-like noises. Lily notifies Manhwa that she has met her master. It was hard for Kitty to wake up. Her sleep had been so sweet. but she stretched lazily and agreed to go with Lily. Only Mao Nonbei was so eager to sleep that she immediately fell asleep after that sentence. The young master hated being called small. She usually became very grumpy after such reminders. Leaving Mao Nonbei to sleep, Lily visited Lu Xun, who was still unconscious. Master Shen's elixir was indeed magical, and the effects were not long in coming. Lu was recovering quickly. But when will he wake up? Once Lu Xun gets better, Lily won't be able to go back to the mountain and won't be able to see the guy for about a year. In the entire world, the person Lily knew was only Lu Xun. However, he was now a legend, with many students talking about him. Not everyone has the courage to jump from such a height, but Lu jumped and didn't even blink an eye. That's what it means to seize an opportunity. Lily wanted to see Lu completely healthy and alive, so she helped in any way she could. Mao Nonbei's sleep was once again interrupted by someone's silhouette. Through the force, the kitty still tried to wake up. Looking at the familiar with one eye, Mao Nonbei wondered how he got here. Turns out he just wanted to see their youngster recover from his injury. Does Mao Nonbei really have to go? The master was giving her a unique opportunity to rest, and he himself would remain on guard. Mao Nonbei was only too happy to leave everything to another master and go about her business. Just when she had the opportunity, her spirit was gone from that place. The master looked around cautiously. He clearly wasn't going to guard here. He looked very cooperative. His plan will certainly not be thwarted now. Lu Xun was recovering quickly. His face was no longer as pale as before. His lips had acquired a distinct pink hue, and the bags under his eyes were no longer there. Even when Lu was half dead, Lily couldn't stop admiring his beauty, and especially his lips, which she wanted to taste. How loudly someone entered the room really startled Lily, so much so that she jumped up. The moment of her being with Lu was somewhat intimate, and she was afraid, as if someone might read her mind and figure it all out. The master didn't stand in the doorway for long and walked through to the sick man. He certainly wasn't going to scare Lily, but Lily didn't understand why he was here. However, like Mao Nonbei, he answered the same thing to Lily. He had come to see the wounded man. For his sake, he sacrificed a very rare panacea that he had cherished for years. The legendary pill of flesh and white bones. Of course, he didn't tell anyone his feelings about it, but he couldn't get over the loss of a pill so important to him. Now that he's gotten to Lu Xun, he has to give something back to himself. Smiling evilly, the master hovered over Lu Xun's body, trying to take his own. Lily could only assume that this type was here for the elixir, and he wanted to attack. The man was already touching Lu Xun's shoulder. It was at this moment that he called out Lily's name. She was really worried for Lu's life, and didn't trust the master, for he looked very suspicious. Lily was horrified, and she could barely ask what he was going to do to Lu. The master saw that Lily was very talented, and that she was destined for a great and successful future. In this scene, such words could be considered subservience, and his smile showed it. Since Lily was scared and confused, she didn't quite understand what the wizard was leading up to or implying. The master didn't drag on for long. A tiny but bright stone appeared in his hand, which seemed, because of its color, to have been taken from the volcano itself. The man handed the stone to Lily, saying it would be useful to her. Lily's build was perfect for practicing with fire. Lily was a little confused and sad at such a gift. After all, it was very unexpected. And why did he give that stone so suddenly? The master was not going to stay long and decided to leave. The only thing that bothered him was why Lily hadn't asked him anything. He was even a little embarrassed and angry at the outcome of the situation. But at last, a sluggish Lily did ask why he had given her the stone. The master glowed with joy when he heard the long-awaited question. This place values talent, which is why Lily got the red stone. Having answered the question, the master, pleased with himself, said goodbye to the girl and went away. After this gesture, Lily no longer found this wizard as scary as she had previously thought he was. In fact, this master was the greediest of all masters, who didn't even have the resources for his students. And with such a small gift, he hoped to recruit Lily as his apprentice. After all, it had been a long time since the clan had had any talented students, as this master believed. It was not surprising that no one had chosen him as a teacher, but this time he wasn't going to miss his next chance. As soon as the master replaced Mao Nonbei, she immediately ran to her sister without waiting a moment. In her joy, Mao Nonbei used her second hypostasis, the body of a cat. Thanks to her feline body, she could move much faster and quieter. She was making sure her sister didn't notice her so she could attack, jokingly of course. Sister was quite experienced and knew all of Sister's habits, so she caught Mao Nonbei right on the fly, and then fondled her little sister in her lap. Mao Nonbei loved her Gu Xiaoman very much, and her sister reciprocated the same, but loved in her own way. There was quite a lot going on, and Mao Nonbei was waiting to share the news with her sister. The main event of these days for Mao Nonbei was, of course, Lu. Only the news that her sister had made a human into her racehorse didn't make Gu Xiaoman very happy, and she became darker than a cloud in the blink of an eye. And in an attempt to teach her little sister a lesson, she tapped her forehead with her finger. And after all, Mao Nonbei only wanted to see Lu Xun's beautiful body and nothing more. In resentment towards Xiaoman, Mao Nonbei didn't even want to communicate with her sister, and she didn't care what her sister thought of her at all. Mao Nonbei was a little distant, but she wasn't going to leave her sister. Xiaoman didn't react to her sister at all. Seeing this, Mao Nonbei apologized so that her sister wouldn't be angry. There were many new things Mao wanted to tell her sister about. Having talked enough, night came, and Mao Nonbei was forced to return to Lu Xun for guard duty. Lily didn't even think about leaving Lu, and continued to marvel at his beauty. He was always handsome, but for some reason Lily found him especially handsome now. Lu Xun was beginning to sweat, his mouth ajar indicating that he needed water. Soon he woke up and asked for water. Lily started fussing over him. But Mao Nonbei was faster, and ran into the room with her kettle of water, shoving it into Lu's mouth. One could conclude that Mao Nonbei wasn't even asleep, but was just pretending to be asleep. Lu Xun's body was completely wrapped in bandages, yet he easily stood up and spoke. Lu expected to be resurrected on the spot, but as it turned out, there was still a drop of life left in him. Something was clearly not going according to plan. Lu Xun felt healthy, recognized he recovered very quickly. With such injuries, he had only slept for 3 or 4 days. Only Mao Nonbei regretted that his current physique wouldn't fit the role of her horse. Lu Xun himself didn't realize how he had regained consciousness so quickly. It felt like something had happened to his blood. Lily was quick to say that Lu's rapid recovery was aided by the Sovereign Lord, which means Lu owes him now, so he hurried to thank his savior. But he hadn't fully recovered yet, and it was better not to move so often, in case he broke something else. Except there was one problem. How would a mortal be able to hold his breath and not die? That was how. This was Lu Xun's personal secret, and he wasn't going to reveal it. However, the girls weren't really trying to find out. His face alone already inspired confidence, and made Lu Xun believe. Only Mao Nonbei quickly emerged from this outbreak of stupefaction. So Lu had to explain that it was about a family heirloom. But since when did the resurrection system become a family heirloom? Mao Nonbei still didn't believe Lu's words, and Lily didn't even question his speech in any way. Who knows if Lu has a rich family? It was all very confusing, but Lu knew one thing for sure. The demon clan really did have a treasure without a master hidden within the demon clan. Once Lu Xun could use this great treasure, he would elevate his level and reach his level. Lu Xun was staring dreamily at the ceiling, as if he had forgotten something, and didn't even hear Mao Nonbei addressing him. So I had to ask what it was even about. The thing was, Lu Xun still hadn't called Mao Nonbei his big sister. Seeing Lily giggle, Lu decided to remind her of something. Just what he meant, the girl didn't quite understand. Lu Xun demanded that Lily call him Uncle Master. Lily called him Uncle Master and even bowed in respect. Lu was even proud in return, and afterward turned his attention to Mao Nonbei and properly called her his big sister. But it looks like Lu got so proud and believed in himself that Mao Nonbei was ready to bite him. But it was worth it for Lu to use his charisma and cute face again, as even girls like Mao would fall into a blush at the sight of him. Since Lu is feeling excellent, he should now appear in front of second senior sister since Gu Xiaoman wished to see him. Beauty had opened many doors for Lu that had not been available to him before. And now he realized that because of his beauty, he could do anything he wanted. Gu Xiaoman was sitting in her favorite seat as usual. Even at night, she continued to meditate. Before even reaching her sister, Mao Nonbei shouted out from far away that she had brought Lu Xun. As was his custom, Lu greeted his older sister. Previously, he had heard a lot of things about Gu Xiaoman. The second elder sister had never even been seen by anyone. Other than a greeting, Lu didn't even know what to say to her, and it made him feel helpless. People had mentioned earlier that Gu Xiaoman stuttered, but how they knew all about her, it was even scary to speculate. No words were needed though. At a distance, thanks to her magic, Gu fed the huge book towards Lu. The one caught her deftly, as if he hadn't given himself a chance to miss the opportunity to educate himself. The way Lu Xun skillfully caught the book, even Mao Nonbei appreciated it with her gaze. The book was much thicker than it should have been. But it was a real treasure for beginners. Only for Lu Xun, the book was completely useless. Since it wasn't nice to refuse the gift, Lu of course accepted it and thanked his big sister. But he still had a question. Why didn't the young master give him anything? He didn't voice his question, of course, but his gaze Mao Nonbei remembered. Lu Xun did not intend to avert his gaze from Mao Nonbei, embarrassing her more and more. The look in his eyes said, "Give me my present since you called yourself sister." There really was a lot in his eyes, and that really pissed Mao Bei off. She understood exactly what Lu was trying to accomplish, and ended up giving him a jade ring as a welcome gift. Overjoyed at yet another gift, Lu immediately snatched the ring out of his hands and began to scrutinize it like a pawn shop. The jade ring had the property of storing things. When Lu put it on his finger, he would have 30 more places in his inventory. Lu can't help but love this gift, as his sister personally picked it out for him. Of course, Lu liked the gift, for he knew its value. And the value of such a ring was estimated at several thousand gold pieces. For some reason, the fact that Lu actually liked the ring made the girls blush, and they even blushed with joy. Gu Xiaoman still felt that the guys were here and waved at them. Sister understood that Gu Xiaoman was telling them to leave, and accordingly, Mao Bei pulled Lu along with her. The second sister wasn't much of a talker. It seemed Lu didn't know much about her either. Lily, who was walking ahead, caught a small firefly in her palms, which she was very happy about. Only Lu didn't understand why the girl was so happy. The reason was clearly not the firefly she had caught, but something else, which she began to explain. The reason for her joy was Lu, or rather his quick recovery. Lu was pleasantly surprised that Lily was actually happy about him, and asked the girl to come closer to him. Lu stood still, and yet the girl obeyed and walked over. Just what did he want to do? Maybe Lily's fantasy already had all sorts of romantic scenarios, but reality was a little different, and the girl received a light flick that brought her out of her fantasy world. Not to be answered, Lu laughingly ran away from the offended girl as quickly as possible, for he thought Uncle Master could play as much as he wanted. Until he meets Mao Bei, Big Sister didn't even have to strain to show her superiority. I mean, she can play with Lu too, can't she? Mao Bei's flick was weak, and yet Lu got stuck in the rock, and he hit a rock so hard that a huge bump popped out on his forehead. But now Lily could sleep well. At a restless pace, the boys did make it to the residence, where Lu continued to fool around with Lily. Only a certain realization made the girl stop. After all, previously she could only enter the study when Lu Xun was unconscious, but now he was healthy. So, why did she come back then? Is she gonna get kicked out now? Lu and Mao Bei were already at the entrance, and Lily was still standing on the doorstep. But suddenly, Lu asked his older sister for permission to lend his gifted book to Lily to study. The book was his, so he could do whatever he wanted with it. Oh, such an exciting moment. Does Lu really want Lily to stay with him? Lily was still standing still, so Lu Xun walked over to her, placing his hand on her shoulder. But it was more of a friendly touch than one with romantic overtones. And when Lu Xun stepped forward towards her to offer to go with him, the girl seemed about to melt from how close he was to her now. All this time, the girl was the color of a beet. She was so excited to be with Lu Xun. Lu Xun gave Lily the book that Gu Xiaoman had given her, because it had a lot of useful information for Lily. She was hesitant to take the book because it was very important, but such was Lu Xun's gratitude for Lily's concern, and besides, he had read the book. How quickly Lu had mastered the information in the book was very impressive to Lily. Turns out Lu read this book from the moment he picked it up. Lily refused to believe it, of course, because it sounded too natural. But to prove his point, Lu suggested that Lily open any page and he would tell her what it said. Lily was really curious to know if he was lying or not, so she started opening the book. But Lu stopped her, and offered to make it harder by having him retell not the written word, but his older sister's comments. Lily didn't mind though, so she started calling out page numbers. On page number 2, the third comment was, "Don't be in a hurry. Take things one step at a time." Lily still couldn't believe her ears, so she started naming the next pages. On the next page, it said to watch your breathing carefully. The accuracy of the way Lu quoted the comments even made the girl tense up. But Lu still calmly and even cheerfully continued to say the comments. As soon as Lu touched the book, the system memorized everything instead of him and saved all the text. But from Lily's side, it looked as if the boy had actually memorized everything himself. The girl herself began to admire the guy even more. In her eyes, he was incredibly strong, attentive towards her, and also so handsome. Lu Xun, like a true gentleman, suggested that Lily lie down on the bed while he himself would stay to sleep on the floor. Although a bed like this could easily sleep two, which Lily hadn't failed to mention. Lu understood that but wanted to get into practice. Mao Bei's cat ears were listening intently behind the boys' conversations. Come to think of it, don't they say people need to stay warm all the time, or does this guy have a herring instead of a brain? Lily was already lying on the bed, although the book was open, but she wasn't reading it, but was scrutinizing Lu Xun. He was very hard-working and strong, which means Lily shouldn't give up either. But after a while, sleep took over, and the girl was already sleeping sweetly over the book. Lu could use the system, but had long wanted to try real refinement. By the way, the perfection in the novels is quite interesting in what Lu memorized. It was narrated that even a double perfection was created. People matched themselves with partners with whom they felt completely comfortable and safe. Such perfection was not so much for the sake of perfection itself, but rather for the sake of double pleasure. Well, it's about time Lu Xun started. His goal is to experience all the sensations of perfection. But the sensations were not as they were described in the books. It was terribly painful. Who would ever say perfection was cool? Lu felt like 1,000 needles were piercing his body. And through the pain, he still couldn't do anything. Mao Nonbei didn't sleep at all and continued to watch Lu. Perfecting was indeed very hard, and especially alone. How did he even think of doing it alone? Practice, of course, is very important. And Lu remembered that, but it was also very difficult. Such difficulties he had clearly not expected. Was practicing so hard for him just because he was unhappy? Lu Xun was very assertive in character and continued to improve through his pain. He never even thought of quitting. The sun's rays were shining through the window, thus caressing Lily's face, which was what made her wake up. It was amazing to see Lu Xun still improving. Lily knew that it hurt like hell, and seeing Lu's condition, she couldn't help but marvel at his diligence. Lu Xun in turn was amazed that Lily was giving him virtues while seeing him bleeding. The curious kitty was also not indifferent to Lu Xun's persistence. After all, to last all night in perfection, it is not easy. Meanwhile, Gu Xiaoman continued her meditation. It was like she knew what Lu was doing and found the guy amazing. Lu had been frozen in one position for a while, and he needed Lily's help to get up. Lily could only understand how he felt when he practiced. It was disgustingly painful. It felt like 1,000 healers trying to stick needles in your body. Only Lily wasn't afraid of it for some reason. Lu Xun wondered why she wasn't scared by this. A little stammered, Lily still explained her reason. After all, there was nothing worse and more painful for her than losing her parents. Lu Xun didn't even know what to say to the girl, because he himself had once faced such a situation and basically understood her. So he apologized for disturbing such a delicate subject for her. But Lily was not at all offended, but only determined to study harder. And now, she won't be able to come here again like before and see Lu Xun because of practice. At this, with a sad face, Lily said goodbye to Lu Xun. And now they're splitting up. How long will it be before they see each other? Seeing that the girl had gone completely blank, Lu rubbed her cheeks, because he couldn't even bear to look at her mournful appearance. Yes, Lily won't be able to climb that mountain anymore, but Lu will be able to see her all the time. In this world, Lily is the only friend for Lu, which is what he confessed to the girl. Such words evoked even more virtue and charm in Lily, which Lu could clearly feel. Lily left and lastly asked Lu to take care of herself. Of course he'll take care of himself, after all. It's only just beginning. I wonder if luck will smile on him in this world. Will he be able to meet his little sister who played in Tianquan? It's quite possible. Only for that to happen, Lu must raise his level. Even if he can't go back, Lu can't allow himself to be bullied. Yesterday's experience before practice gave him 666 points, but after practice he only had 20. He was fine with it, but then again, he had no choice. Lu Xun felt hungry, and before he got up he needs to find food. From behind him, someone's voice could be heard. Someone was already congratulating Lu Xun on the start of practice. The master again pointed out the fact that such intelligent and talented apprentices, the truest blessing for the clan. The appearance of this master made Lu Xun very tense. He already suspected that he would want to charge him for the treatment. This bald man is also known as the Iron Rooster. After all, he doesn't have a single hair on his body. The master was very happy to see Lu healthy in such a short time. It had been decided that a ceremony would be held in honor of the teacher's acceptance of the new student, and now the master was kindly inviting Lu to attend. The ceremony event itself didn't sound very uplifting, and Lu huffed. If he accepts this assignment and goes to the ceremony, the system will give him 10,000 points for one time. He wouldn't have to do anything particularly heavy. Of course, now he will definitely accept the master's invitation. Before hearing the answer, the master politely decided to ask if Lu Xun had any other plans or questions regarding the ceremony. There were no plans or questions. Lu accepted the invitation and will be happy to participate in the ceremony with so many points at stake. Of course, and the master himself was glad that Lu had agreed. Now he would be expecting him at the ceremony tomorrow. Lu Xun was already jubilant that he would be able to obtain 10,000 points and special attributes in just one trip to the ceremony. Now he would be able to shine in front of the demons, not only with his face, but also with his strength. Only the hungry stomach was still making itself felt. He's got to get food somewhere, otherwise he'll starve to death. His solution to this problem was very specific and dangerous, but with his charisma, it was quite realistic. Lu asked Mao Nunbei to catch him a fish, of course. Such a violent reaction was to be expected. To persuade Mao Nunbei to catch the fish, Lu used his cute face and the fact that he worked as a chef in a 5-star restaurant and would surely cook something delicious. Upon hearing the word 5-star restaurant, the kitty's eyes literally sparkled. If Lu Xun really does make something unrealistically delicious, Mao Nunbei wouldn't mind trying it herself. Working in an old and unwanted barbecue joint, Lu Xun was in no way lying. Only 5 minutes had passed, and Mao Nunbei, like a predator coming from a hunt, had already returned to Lu with her prey. Lu Xun had never imagined that it was possible to catch critters so quickly, so he didn't even hide his surprise. Well, what else would you expect from a Mao Nunbei, kitty? Mao Nunbei felt very kind at this moment, for she rarely agrees to help anyone. But if she does something, she does it well. Lu Xun did not hide his admiration, for Mao Nunbei was indeed a great hunter. Kitty brought Lu into the kitchen with her third big brother, who is always treating her to something yummy. This is where Lu will cook his own food. But if he doesn't cook it well, he doesn't even have to call Mao Nunbei and eat his food himself. The cooking process started from cleaning the fish. Then the greens and garlic went in. Finally, it's time to fire up the stove. Just as the cooking began, the pleasant aroma of meat and rice wafted from the kitchen, straight out into the street. The kitty's sense of smell was excellent. In consequence of the pleasant odor of meat, drool from her mouth immediately flowed. There was no way she could stay away, though she wasn't hungry. It smelled too good. Lu Xun had already prepared everything and cleaned up after himself. The sudden appearance of his elder sister made him a little worried. Suddenly, he had done something wrong. Mao Nunbei couldn't wait any longer, and like a true predator pounced on the basket that held the food. Except that Lu was also planning to share with the other older sister, so Mao Nunbei paused her fervor and tried to snatch the basket, but she flopped to the floor. She encouraged the idea of sharing food with her older sister. Soon they went to her favorite meditation spot. Before they could even get there, Gu Xiaoman could already smell the wonderful aroma of the food. Mao Nunbei raced toward her sister, and Lu behind her could barely keep up. The girl set the basket down on the stone with gravity, offering her sister a taste of her brother's creation. Just how do you divide 2 fish and a chicken? However, Mao Nunbei found a solution to this problem very quickly, and gave my sister a whole fish, chicken, and rice. But does a person like Gu Xiaoman need to eat any food at all? Surprisingly, Gu Xiaoman did indeed eat. Mao Nunbei became very hungry and looked eagerly at the fish. Lu Xun tried to snatch at least a bite of fish from the girl. It was the ultimate food fight. Eventually, Mao Nunbei got very full and couldn't eat anymore, and Lu Xunyu has nothing left. However, Gu Xiaoman was also very full. Our cook was the only one left hungry. On the way back, Lu wondered when the Lord would return. Only no one knew the answer to that question. But what was his reason for coming down the mountain in the first place? Was there really something important going on down there, like a battle? Mao Nunbei found such a question very strange, and generally looked at Lu as if he were an idiot. After all, the very process of going down the mountain is so much fun that you don't even need any reason. And if it wasn't for Lu Xun, Mao Nunbei herself would have happily escaped from this mountain. Only there was something wrong here. Don't the members of the demon sect think it's their duty to harm the world and intimidate everyone? Coming down the mountain for fun, demons, are you serious? Lu Xun decided to open his own game forum. There was nothing new on the news, but he had 3 subscribers to his page. The forum was open, but there was still a lot of time before the beta version, so there was no point in joining. But if you think about it that way, maybe the transience of time is different in Worlds. One could only hope that tomorrow's ceremony would be a success, and the players would be enchanted. Improving was indeed a difficult process, but Lu was determined not to give up, and continue the process through the pain. With Jiwei's food, he would be able to save 20 years of his life. In the end, he managed to accumulate more experience points than he needed, all through improvement. Lu Xun was awake, but Mao Nunbei burst into his room shouting to wake up faster. It felt like there was a fire going on somewhere. Mao Nunbei didn't even want to hear any excuses. Lu had to go with her, and to make that clear, she took his hand. Then she led the way, explaining what was going on. Today was Lu Xun's opening ceremony, and there were a lot of people attending. But wouldn't Mao Nunbei like to say a few nice words to him in honor of this holiday? No, she doesn't. It was completely irrelevant in her opinion. Before leaving, Lu wanted to change into the better clothes he had prepared in advance. It was the right decision after all. He is the master's disciple, so he should change into Mozong's clothes. Mao Nunbei offered him a change of clothes right there and promised not to even peek. But he wasn't going to settle for that, and threw the kitty out the door. If only someone had been watching him. What an impudent man! How could he think Mao Nunbei cared about his body? But we still had to wait outside. Although she wouldn't get to see her brother change clothes, I wonder how he would look in the demon clan's clothes. After all, Lu Xun was so handsome. Lu changed his clothes very quickly and was on his way out. In addition to the clothes, he also changed his hair with a beret. The clothes fit him perfectly. It was a color that accentuated all of Lu Xun's facial features, making him look even better, and it also showed off his athletic body. Tell me, how could I not fall in love with him? Even the cold-blooded Kitty Manhwa couldn't resist him, gazing at him like an enchanted woman and unable to say his name from shock. She looked at him like that. Lu thought suddenly something was wrong, and the next instant she closed her eyes and ran away as if she had caught him naked. But no, there was no way she could lose control. Though Manhwa wanted him to be her horse so badly. Even though he was her younger brother, she still wanted him so badly. What could she say? Lu Xun had already had time to assume that Manhwa had cat epilepsy, as he didn't realize how beautiful he looked right now. However, the Demon Clan's uniform seems to be a weapon. We should have the system check this rumor. Unfortunately, the precious garment was without any attributes but yellow level, though usually players always have several sets of these things, and then the average chicken turns into a fashionable chick. Lu Xun stood there in a daze, not understanding what was going on with Manhwa. She was not going to reveal her secrets, so she said that she just fought with stray cats and won. Just the fact that she was fighting someone was highly questionable and faintly believable. But in any case, the ceremony would start very soon, and it would be very unseemly to be late. Manhwa reminded her of this on purpose to distract herself and calm down. As it turns out, the older sister will also take the stage during the ceremony, because she has to be there. That was the only thing that surprised Lu Xun, and the kitty warned the guy not to mess with the old woman or she'd chop his head off. However, Lu Xun could already imagine the faces of the disciples during this performance. However, something else is needed for such a grand ceremony. Lu was very worried, so he asked the girl not to do anything strange. To appear more spectacular at the ceremony, Manhwa decided to use her stork and fly in on it. From the height of the flight, the Demon Clan disciples below could be seen crowding around. Even the men were mesmerized by Lu Xun's beauty. His appearance in general seemed inhuman. He seemed like a living fairy to them. He was so handsome that people's legs would even go bouncing at the mere sight or even presence of him. With looks like his, anyone could find a wife, the students thought. As soon as the girls saw him, their whole life flashed before their eyes, and Lu Xun didn't even suspect anything, and didn't understand why there was such a commotion among the disciples. Lu's reputation was growing very fast. He should be careful of too much attention from women. It could bring danger on him. Manhwa made it clear that Lu should show himself to the students. And to make sure there was no doubt in his mind, the girl pushed him down from the stork. In order to eventually land more or less safely, he should use all his cultivation skills. And if Manhwa can't stay on his feet, it's going to look extremely awkward. From the direction of the disciples, there were immediately cries of Uncle Master falling. There were many rumors among them about him practicing, but had he managed to reach a new level in such a short time? At this moment, Lu Xun hated this cat with all his heart. Did she really want to make a fool of him? Only it's not so easy. Kitty didn't take into account something. Namely, that Lu is the best among the Tontiandai, meaning the best among the rogue players who can't be beaten. On the way down, Lu had already figured out how he was going to proceed and rumbled to the ground where the crowds of students were standing. Everyone was watching the perpetrator of the ceremony and was surprised by such a prank. For Lu, body control is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but for the students, it's a great opportunity to witness an unusual spectacle. After this, Lu gained an even more attention and female fans. A sign has now gone up, warning to beware of male attention, it could involve danger. Just how Lu is supposed to take it is unclear. To draw attention to himself, Shenyang awkwardly coughed. After all, the entire crowd had only paid attention to Lu Xun, and now another master had appeared. All the students, in one chorus, welcomed the new master, and Lu Xun's gaze was searching for someone. As by reaction, Lily immediately waved her hand at him, letting me know she was here. Finding a familiar face in the crowd, Lu Xun smiled at the girl. The girls in front of Lily exclaimed admiringly at Lu Xun, though it wasn't them who were smiling. Lily was over the moon that the guy had noticed her after all. One of the demon clans standing beside Shenyang greeted the new master Lu Xun. Just a short time ago he was just an apprentice, but now he's a peak master. Now he's just shining. Manhwa is now very lucky that Lu can't do anything to her as she is flying on a stork. Shenyang asked Lu Xun to start the ceremony. Of course, except he's going to do something else. The first thing he did was open the update plate and embrace the whole new experience. In front of all the students, the master was ascending to the second level. Just for a minute, getting to the second level is incredibly difficult. Somehow, even level 2 is harder than level 10, as it requires enlightenment. The first level is to absorb chi into your body. At the second, one must begin to create one's own energy. To achieve it, one must not only be extremely talented, but also have a calm mind. The master didn't even show himself in front of everyone. The disciples expected the new master to give them advice. The path of perfection is very long. You need to develop your mind. This is the advice Lu Xun gave. In gratitude for these precious words, all the disciples bowed to him. But what and whom he taught, he himself did not understand. At this point, his reputation was already rising, which he didn't understand either. For what? Lu Xun had broken through to the second level in just 2 days. Shen couldn't understand who Lu was. How did he do it? Some look at it short-sightedly and perhaps see only the size of the water tank. But some will see streams and a waterfall. But those who are truly talented and see things differently. The chi that Shen saw was like a river. Now he was worried about what Lu had seen? By the way, it was once said that the second level sea can be seen. But why didn't Lu Xun see anything? It can be assumed that this happened because Lu Xun is the chosen one, and the situation is different. Yes, it's definitely about that. Any confident man would think so. Even the disciples were very curious about what kind of key energy the new master saw. Judging from his character, it could be assumed that he saw a big river. Only the master didn't want to reveal it, so the pupils themselves made up what he saw there. But some people didn't care what he had on the inside when he was so handsome on the outside. Shen still couldn't calm down, and he was really curious about what Lu Xun had seen after all. One of the masters assumed that Lu couldn't see anything, therefore he was silent. This assumption was given out by the founder, Gongshu Panyu, Lord of Thunder Peak and Elder of Law Enforcement. But Luo Wangqiu thought otherwise, and found Uncle Master special. Luo thought he had seen streams, lakes, or even rivers. Long-lived Sima Qin, the Lord of Evergreen Peak, relied on his intuition and agreed with Gongshu's opinion. Yue Heshin, Master of Yulai Peak, already wanted to put up his proposal, but noticing the scornful stares he got, he was a little confused. Of course, it was about betting, and everyone was willing to put their money where their mouth was for their words. Respected peak masters must remember that such behavior is not encouraged, and will be forced to pay 500 spirit stones if violated. Such a statement was harsh, but nevertheless, everyone gave him 500 spirit stones each. He shouldn't be upset after all, the guys just wanted to place bets. Gunshu ended up on the sidelines while the guys discussed their bets and opinions on the situation. Of course, standing alone was boring and sad, so Guanshu left the stones behind, and headed for the company. After all, it's just a gamble. Sometimes you can afford it. The old man wanted to argue too. Lu Xun turned out to be the perpetrator of the argument, standing to the side and feeling rather awkward. But he didn't have to stand for long. At that moment, Mao Nonbei flew up to him, informing him that it was time for them to return. After the past event and her sister's gaze, Lu was even scared to be around her. Lu Xun squinted at Mao Nonbei excitedly the entire way, and finally dared to ask why she was looking at him the whole way. But there was no particular response. Mao Nonbei immediately decided to ask a counter-question. About what did he see when he went to the second level? In fact, in that moment of renewal, all he saw was boundless darkness. There was nothing in that darkness, absolute emptiness, but he dared not speak of it to anyone. So he answered like this. This kind of answer didn't satisfy Mao Nonbei. How come he can't tell her she's his sister? As exciting as it is to see, Lu still has to keep his face. Telling everyone he hasn't seen any sea of chi at least resembles a little common sense, and he's completely lost face. The cat didn't insist on the answer, though. But still, she thought to herself that her younger brother was not talented at all. Only now she was expecting compensation in the form of fried fish. Lu Xun had nothing against it. Ma Nonbei thought it was okay if he couldn't see anything. No one would be in time to say anything to him because of it. Lu Xun noted the fact to himself that he suddenly became very similar to himself in reality. Point: no parents, no past, nothing. He pretended to be aggressive and was always demonstrating his actions to others. Why would anyone pay attention to someone like him? Are there a lot of people like that who are faking it? In general, it's just a desire for attention and emotion. After all, he has a little sister to protect. However, is there such an opportunity? The likelihood that his sea of chi is black? The next day, as promised, Lu Xun cooked his kitty sister's fish. Mao Nonbei reported to her older sister that Lu had not seen the sea of qi. The cat herself was not happy about it, but instead reacted somehow sadly. For Gu Xiaoman, this was also something to ponder over. But for some reason, Ma Nonbei ran away from her sister's arms, and then she jumped on her favorite brother's head. He was eating and was not happy that the kitty was on him now, because her hair would fly into his plate. Mao Nonbei turned affectionately to her brother. She had some business to attend to. If he can't see the Sea of Qi, he shouldn't be upset because his big sister will always be at his side and protect him. If anyone tries to bully Lu Xun, Mao Nonbei will also cut off his head. Such words pleasantly impressed the guy, he was ready to almost cry in gratitude, and handed the kitty his fish, which was already reaching for her. Mao Nonbei had had enough from her portion, but the fish that Brother Lu was cooking seemed like she could eat forever. Pussycat ate fish like that on Lu's head, and the grease dripped down his silky hair and forehead. Gu Xiaoman turned her attention to Lu Xun. For some reason, she had a sudden feeling of helping this guy. In the middle of the deep night, screams were heard from the cabin. Lu Xun shouted in his sleep and asked someone not to come near him even though he didn't even realize who it was. It was a nightmare that forced him to wake up in a cold sweat. Fearful and confused, he tried to remember what the dream was about. Was he being chased by someone in his sleep? Or is there something he doesn't understand? An unusual blue shadow appeared behind him, which looked very strange. Although maybe he's just too tense. He still has some points to score, so he'd better get some sleep. But even in the dream, that shadow was reappearing. It had the shape of some kind of fire, and it was as if he were in the same place at the moment when he went to the second level. Once again, this dark, desolate place. The blue shadow began to take the form of a woman. Just why was this happening to him? At this moment, he felt no longer fear, but rather a lack of understanding of the situation at hand. So tugging at my cheeks to wake up from this nightmare. But how to explain what he saw, it was difficult. What was it, a ghost? He reminded himself who he was, and that he owed it to himself to get a good night's sleep tonight. As soon as he put his head on the pillow and closed his eyes, Lu Xun saw the blue shadow once again. Looks like he really was being stalked, but it was hard to believe it was happening to him. There was nothing to do at night anyway, so he tried to sleep again. But that woman was in front of him again, only she wasn't doing anything. Lu Xun was definitely tired. He didn't understand what was wanted from him and how he should act in such a situation. But the only way out in such a situation is to run. Although, if it's not a coincidence, maybe Lu Xun should let his dream continue? It's worth doing the right thing then, and calling for a system check. The sword's intentions are an extra assignment, in the form of a special training session. Will he accept it? Lu Xun was still standing in the plant, pondering the situation that had happened. But when he realized what was wrong, it even pleased him. This whole situation was due to the kindness of Gu Xiaoman's older sister. Of course, Lu Xun could not afford to let her down, and of course accepted the task. After accepting the assignment the fight is about to begin, Lu should get ready. The Shadow Girl possessed a sword, and the guy had nothing at all. This night, Lu Xun was killed by a very strange method. The Shadow Girl's sword continuously passed through Lu Xun's body. I have to admit that even though it ended in agony, it ended very nicely. In total, Lu Xun had been killed by the Shadow Girl 36 times. In the morning, his head ached as if he'd been drinking alcohol all evening. It would not be long before dawn, in fact. He could repeat the fight, and many more times. But a guest had already come to see him, wondering what he had been up to. Mao Nonbei kindly offered him 2 peanuts. Of course, to answer what he was really doing, Lu didn't even think about it. Since he'd worked so hard the night before, he was very dizzy. Lu Xun didn't accept the peanuts from Mao Nonbei's hands, so she fed him herself. For some reason, she was worried about his nutrition and fed him 2 at once. He still swallowed those nuts, and the kitty instructed him that it was very healthy. However, these nuts had an unusual flavor, and Lu felt more awake after eating them. He should cook for Mao Nonbei more often. Kitty did the math and concluded that he had been grabbed 36 times this night, and inquired curiously about his sword intent from his older sister. The first thing that surprised him was the fact that Mao Nonbei knew about it at all. Big sister is very omnipotent. Kitty offered to take Lu to her if he wanted to. Of course, Gu Xiaoman wouldn't obey her little sister, but that wasn't that important. Mao Nonbei was more interested in seeing her little brothers please. However, Lu Xun and straightforwardly needed to discuss a matter with his older sister. He wondered if the sword's intent would dissipate over time. The answer was, of course not. Mao Nonbei had a slightly different idea of things. However, the fact that the sword intent wouldn't dispel already pleased Lu. And Puss didn't understand why he liked the way he was being tortured so much. Was he crazy? It looked like he would be able to hold out for another 30 days. Lu Xun has made his decision. Lu Xun suggested that the kitty go make some food, to which she was very happy. It was quite noisy outside. Lu assumed it was some kind of holiday today. Today really was a holiday, a family day, so all the students came down the mountain. But for those who have no family, the demon clan becomes a home for them. So everyone celebrates the holiday. Many Tianqian practitioners are just ordinary people, only with a longer lifespan. However, the beam of light is isolated from them. This is the same reason why so many people enjoy this world full of fireworks and touch. Compared to the cold reality here, it's really quite nice. Parents were happy that their children would be back from the mountain and could celebrate the holiday all together as a family. People bragged to each other about how their children had risen in status, but it was too late to talk about it. In one cafe, where hot and delicious tea was being developed, a young man was telling interesting stories. It was obvious that it was not the first time this man was here, and often pleases people with his stories, because his voice was very well placed, and he himself looks quite charismatic. The people, and especially the girls, were eagerly waiting for the continuation of the story, because they were about to hear the most important thing. They almost begged the gentleman to continue the story, but he could not. He considered it a disgrace to the literati. If listeners want to know what happened between the main characters, they should listen to the next chapter. Everyone who has money should give money, and everyone who doesn't have money should get out of here. People weren't happy, but they weren't going to give up their money either, so they left the room. The man who collected the money received nothing again, and blamed it on his master so that he would reflect on his behavior. Storytelling is just a hobby, no matter how much money it makes, or if it makes money at all. The companion suggested the gentleman return to the mountain. Only why? Perhaps the gentleman had someone to visit, but as the question touched him, he hesitated. There was still no answer from him. When he saw the mirrors, he wondered how handsome he was. And not everyone has 2 eyes, 2 ears, a nose, and a mouth. The companion thought, if a person is smug enough, their appearance doesn't matter at all. Wasn't Shenyang chosen just because he was bald and short? The young gentleman was interested in walking around the bazaar. He came across some elders who were playing Go. He was not reluctant to comment, of course, and commented on the man's move as very foolish. Of course, people got very angry because others were silently watching the game and the one couldn't keep quiet. Satisfied with the situation, he ran away from the angry crowd, convincing them that the move was indeed stupid. Looks like they'll have to postpone the hike to the mountains until the Lord has had his fill. And the game was truly awful. But the gentleman wouldn't mind playing a couple of times. Only the disciple didn't understand why the master had set such admission rules. As you might have guessed, it was that little cabinet master. As it turned out that day on Jian Peak, someone carelessly said these rules. It was very hard to believe such a thing. I wanted to hope that there definitely had to be a deep meaning in those 3 conditions. Looks like we'll need to study students who meet the 3 points after we return. The apprentice couldn't wait to get back to the mountain after all, for that office was filled with so many interesting things he had yet to learn. Lu Xun and Mao Nonbei still came to Guxiaomen, and certainly not empty-handed. Lu didn't understand why his older sister had left him so suddenly. After all, she had disappeared very suddenly. The reason could be lurking in the fact that having advanced to the 2nd level, Lu saw very little chi energy, which meant he needed to train more. And when asked what kind of sword the older sister was using, Mao Nonbei only giggled because he would find out about that later. The reaction to such a question made the guy wonder. Mao Nonbei was happy to tell her big sister that they had brought her some delicious food by me. Lu Xun first of all thanked big sister for her precious advice and help. Gu Xiaoman had never once said a word back to Lu. Could it finally work out today? To be sure to get it exactly right, Lu thanked his sister and again. And oh wonder, Gu Xiaoman replied that she heard his thanks after all. Lu in turn asked to taste the noodles he made for his sister. Gu couldn't refuse the food, at least because it smelled so good. The mere smell of the noodles already gave her an appetite. And of course, the girl tried it. The noodles were so delicious that she didn't even default to it, and bluntly said the flavor was delicious. Suddenly, Lu Xun realized that big sister was incredibly cute after all. Only now, the sword intent had dissipated. This was felt first and foremost by Lu Xun himself. The boy looked a little better at his sister, and noticed that the hairpin is most likely her weapon of choice. Heaven and Earth was only available on the 60th level at the beginning of the comma, and the 2nd oldest sister was not seen by anyone. The question remains, how strong is she? The common stiletto had kept Lu Xunyu awake for several nights. I wonder how big sister looks with her hair loose. Lu Xun and Mao Nonbei walked up the long stretching steps. The guy was even tired out of habit. He could go no farther, for he was panting for breath. So his sister decided to remind him of his own words. Never say you can't do something. Not much time had passed by Mao Nonbei's reckoning, and Lu couldn't even move, and was resting against a rock to keep from falling. But did the kitty even know what she was talking about? Looks like she was just teasing with Lu Xun. Since sibling wasn't going to go and wanted to rest, Mao Nonbei would be the first to return to her crib. Only she started to run as she ran into a male figure. Shenyan seemed to not even pay attention to this and greeted the masters. Mao Nanbei swore foully at the bald man. If he blocked her way again, she would bite him. Master didn't react in any way to her scolding, and the cat felt even uncomfortable. The pain in her face was making itself felt, and she warned him that she would still bite him next time. Lu Xun turned to the Sovereign Lord, asking what could be of use to him. Shen was primarily interested in how Lu knew he had come for him. Lu Xun then suggested that perhaps he wanted to call out Mao Nanbei as well. Maybe the Sovereign Lord wants to fish together? Oh, or is that not in keeping with his status? One had to admit, Lu Xun understood everything perfectly, and the Lord really was here to find Lu. Shen Yan immediately inquired, how big was the QE body of water he had seen back then? For his answer, he would immediately receive all these stones in a pouch. But of course the guy refused. The Sovereign Lord had no idea that it was so personal. But he had another thing on top of that. Lu Xun had already guessed what business he might have with him because it was all written on his face. Is Lu Xun interested in learning outside the organization? But could Lu participate in anything with his meager strength? As it turned out, yes. It was pretty straightforward this time. Most students would be involved. To verify the information, he went to the relevant source. If he completes an additional task, he will gain Zongmen experience, a reward that consists of 5,000 points. Just think about it. It only takes 5 minutes to earn 5,000 experience points. But something was wrong, because he had suffered so desperately on another task before, and had only gotten 20 points. Now all he had to do was draw for 5 minutes. Is it really that good and it just has to be painted? That was true, but the pen to draw with is called Mr. Pen. No wonder ordinary people can't even get their hands on it. The suggestions sounded dangerous, but it was worth a try when only points were at stake. Lu Xun took part in the case after all, so the Sovereign Lord asked to follow him. Only Lu Xun had been walking for a very long time, and his legs were tired. Shen Yan suggested an alternative: fly. Lu Xun really liked flying. It was a great feeling. Only pity one thing. It was a one-time action. The Lord himself also enjoyed the feeling of flying. It brought genuine pleasure.
Lu Xun was here to see Ji Li.
As he flew past that very strange mountain, he couldn't help but take notice of it. No matter how many times he looked at it, it still looked like a scabbard. The Sovereign Lord wondered if Lu was interested in the appearance of this mountain. Does he even know what happened? A tremendous amount of force must have been applied to such a thing. But did humans do it? Lu's assumption turned out to be correct. Jiying Peak became like this after a sword was launched at it. Was it a sword created by a master? As it turned out, the sword was created by the founder of the Demon Clan. The master is this man's senior disciple, and he in turn is Shen Yang's teacher. It could be inferred that the Demon Clan was only passed down for 2 generations. But had Lu heard the most important thing in the Lord's opinion? The Sovereign Lord coughed again to say something important. And the most important thing is that his teacher is invincible and was able to cut the mountain. And as long as his teacher is here, no one can surpass him. Did he want to say that he, Senior Lu Xun, was the world's strongest swordsman? He was indeed the strongest, but he was currently training far away from here. Lu Xun noticed something, namely that there was no such thing in the previous game. The teacher was far away and looking for a breakthrough. If there wasn't one, he could never be reborn again. The point of closure is to pass the test or die. Only Shen Yan was annoyed that the scum from Fang Jianshan and Yi Jianshan were constantly trying to check whether the teacher was alive or not. By such an action, rather than ruining the reputation of the strongest swordsman, it was said that Elder Brother was the first suzerain of the Demon Clan, but what about Master? Roughly speaking, he was a casual practitioner. The Master still has no family or clan. He isn't even part of the Demon Clan. All of Lu Xun's hunches were confirmed. After all, he knew that Mozong's actions were not demonic at all. But should the Lord say that many people don't care about that? It is said that the junior is not particularly intelligent or strong, and cannot understand how unruly the Master is. Shen decided to take responsibility and explain himself to him. The Sovereign Lord pointed to the place where his teacher had chopped the peak with a single sword at the very beginning. The other half of the sword energy still remained on top of the mountain, and many cultivators could quietly watch it. Lu Xun inquired if the sword was real. To convince his companion of this, the master pointed to that spot. Only it was unclear why it was so short. As it turns out, this mountain was chopped by a sovereign lord. Is it normal that many swordsmen tried to surpass his master? Now, Lu Xun really felt like he was in the Demon Clan, because this kind of behavior was very typical of them. No one wanted to even climb to the top. Since these cultivators always want to come and see this spectacle, do they want to comprehend sword energy? Could Lu Xun try to do that? To understand exactly, Lu asked for permission to look at the sword energy that Big Brother had left behind. Normally, a sovereign lord would always say no, but Lu Xun decided to let Lu Xun take a look, however, not to get too carried away. It was a little dangerous. While the man was watching the energy was watching him too. And chances of dying. Is it really possible to die just from chi looking at him? Lu had resurrection coins, so either way he wouldn't die. This was a great opportunity for him. So does he still want to look at the energy? Lu Xun is a gambler. Even if he dies from it, he still wants to watch. But Shenyan promised that he would do his best to protect Lu Xun from possible death. When Lu got to this place, he realized that the place was pretty weird. Everywhere else was cold and dark, but there was a light visible farther away. If you look closely, you can create sword energy. This is something Lu Xun has never seen before. The energy of the sword was simply enormous. It spread throughout the entire rock and moved as well. Lu Xun couldn't understand what the hell was going on here. He had never seen anything like this before, so he watched the sword in a stupor. The sword, for some reason, was making circular motions, but not trying to wound the guest. And soon he was walking into the rock like some kind of worm. What do you mean the sword escaped from Lu Xun? But it was no longer possible to observe, for the hand of the sovereign lord took Lu Xun from the mysterious place, as if pulling him out of a swamp. It was obvious that this was not easy for the lord, and it took a lot of effort. He was barely out of breath when he asked his question, and soon he started coughing. But there was still no answer from Lu. Not because he didn't want to answer, but because a notice went out about a new classification he had just received. To think, get special points just by looking at the sword. Lu now possessed kendo qualifications, and really comprehended the level of fencing. It was an incredible breakthrough. Sovereign Lord began to suspect that Lu Xun was a genius altogether. The legendary sword-born fruit, and now it belongs to Lu Xun. It was incredible to the point of envy. After all, no one wanted to even risk looking at the sword, and in just a couple of minutes, the one who dared to do so had gained so many benefits. The qualification was, shall we say, bright. When Lu received a new step, his body would shine, so much so that it would even dazzle everything around him. Getting a new qualification has been quite an enjoyable process. Compared to the painful improvement, it is a real relaxation. It felt like there was a new star in the sky. The flash of light from receiving a new qualification was so bright that it was even seen from several kilometers away by the clan disciples. The practicing Lily also noticed that something was going on, for even her sword was trembling. She guessed that the bright light was coming from where Lu Xun was.
When everyone realized what the matter was, every single disciple was happy for the master and shouted congratulations.
Lily was especially happy because he was her friend. His every accomplishment was a reason to be proud of him. Lu Xun was a true role model for Lily. She was probably happy to have met such a person. No one expected that it could be done like this. Lu Xun didn't know it himself, so he tried every possible way to advance and become stronger. Absolutely everyone was happy for him, but he was in a brooding state. At this moment, he had the second level, the highest enchantment possible, as well as one qualification. In such a short period of time, it was a really big breakthrough. All the masters worshipped Lu with respect for his obtaining the sword heart. No disciple had ever managed to do this. The sovereign lord was proud of Lu's breakthrough and didn't hide it. In his eyes, the young master was truly a genius. Only Lu Xun didn't understand why everyone was so happy at all. And finally, the finishing touch. His task was completed and he received 2,000 points. Now Lu Xun also allowed himself to be happy. It turns out that it takes so little for others to be happy. Lu Xun is the most ordinary player, and he doesn't understand what Jianxin means to practitioners. However, he only relies on experience points in his life. 10,000 experience points would be enough for him to rise to the 5th level. But the most important thing was this attribute. Would it be useful to Lu Xun? The Sovereign Lord suggested that Lu go back to training after all. This is a test of the outer door, and here, Lu Xun was of course fine with it. But to himself he was annoyed with Shen Yan for how dare he interfere with him. In general, the Lord thought it was great that the younger uncle had managed to survive such adventures. From a bird's eye view, they were able to observe the test site. All the students greeted their uncle, the Sovereign Lord, as well as the elders. Lu Xun asked, putting aside politeness. After all, they only needed to conduct a test. The men were charmed by the younger uncle, for he was such a handsome and easily charmed man. If they were girls, they would surely fall in love with such a man. The Sovereign Lord suggested that the yeoman back off a bit, but would it be appropriate to leave now? Maybe someone would like to have tea, though it seemed a long time since they'd had tea together. The man reminded me that they had tea just yesterday. Don't they want to see the results of a younger uncle? But the elder began to resent it. He wanted to see it after all, which he wasn't hiding now, so he was immediately invited to step back and have a little drink. Lu Xun watched the departing elders as someone suddenly called out to him. Lily tried to stand on her toes to appear at least a little taller and see her favorite person. Waving her hand, she tried to shout to her uncle, and as she looked at him, she couldn't stop marveling at how handsome he still was. Noticing the familiar face, Lu Xun smiled at the girl with the kindest smile. Then he beckoned the girl to come closer to him. Lily was surprised, admittedly, but still agreed to come up and tried to break through the crowd of Lu's groupies. After a long time, they finally met under such circumstances, and in front of a huge crowd. Lily felt embarrassed, though. She was always embarrassed in Lu's presence since she liked him. Lu noticed this because she had once wanted to catch him, but now she was as shy as an 8th grader on a date. Would she still want to do that to him? Lu Xun walked closer to the girl and gently stroked her head, giving her a kind look. Lily didn't say anything, only looked at him with her green eyes. Lily was a student now, and this time she wouldn't dare steal it. She said she wouldn't dare, but she's got a look on her face. Did she miss Lu Xun so much? When the test elder approached, Lily actually blushed, embarrassed, and turned around so no one would see it. The elder coquettishly wondered if the younger uncle just wanted to watch, or would he participate right away? To show all his superiority, Lu Xun chose to be the first in the trial. It's also a great chance to make everyone nervous. Approving exclamations came from the crowd, for Uncle never ceased to amaze everyone. Let all the disciples become his fans, for Lu Xun's reputation depended on them. Then the elder pointed to a table with a huge piece of paper where Lu would be the first to begin the test. In front of him was an ultra-low-level talisman paper, as well as a single brush. There were definitely no flaws in the paper. It's all about the brush. This brush was bought by the husband of an elder in a small town. Lu Xun should take it and paint on the talisman paper. No matter what a person paints, the one who guides the brush the longest will be rewarded with a green pill. The green pill is a treasure that can last for decades of practice. The students were motivated because they saw no catch and thought they could do it forever. However, Lu Xun was already ready to proceed. The test has begun! But before picking up the brush, Lu Xun asked the system to research everything. The brush was of low quality and was used for writing. Its level was level 20, and an important note, an aura was present. The fact that the writing brush was level 20 and had an aura was very disturbing. How fierce was the owner of this brush? However, it doesn't matter. You just have to try. It's supposed to be surprisingly easy, and there's probably nothing complicated about it. But Lu Xun still took his time, carefully dipped his brush into the comma ink and listened to his sensations. Once the brush lint was filled with paint, the brush became much heavier. Lu Xunyu was much harder to handle with his arm, and needed to use extra muscle strength to do so. But it didn't help in any way, so I had to use magic power. Fortunately, thanks to his abilities, he did pick up the brush. The eyes of the disciples shone with admiration. Lu Xun is definitely their idol now. The most important thing for Lu right now is not to embarrass himself in their eyes. Having managed to master the brush and your hand, things should go on much easier. The students did not hide their admiration. The young master's face remained beautiful in any situation. The young master's face remained beautiful in any situation, and the elders thought he had a good heart. They were sure none of the chosen husbands could be ordinary. I wonder how long Lu will last. Lu Xun could immediately identify the catch, and it was that in order to hold the pen, one must possess spiritual energy. You had to move the brush very smoothly and dip it into the ink as well. So Lu tried to do everything very carefully, as if he were painting a picture to sell. The young master didn't move at all, and this was noticed by the audience. Maybe he was thinking about something, or was he trying to paint some incredible picture? It wasn't that he didn't want to move, it was that this brush wasn't shifting at all. Well, if we have to rely on spiritual energy alone, he'll play to the end. So the following hours, he did not use physical strength, but only spiritual strength. After that, the brush began to obey him as if he were its sole owner. Even the elder hinted for everyone to think about it, for it was much simpler than it seemed. This brush had a soul, and brute force alone cannot take it. So then how can it be better managed? Lu Xun seemed to have finally figured out the best course of action. This brush should be handled softly, not roughly. This trial was to test the members of the demon clan. You can't work with brute force, you have to dig deeper. And accordingly, then it will be easy to cope with any situation. The elders watching the young man realized that Lu Xun was much smarter than they could have guessed. He figured it out pretty quickly, but it wasn't easy. If he didn't have any experience with aura release, he wouldn't be able to do it for long. Lu Xun possessed a strange feeling. He had never used aura before, so how was it working out now? It was all thanks to Gu Xiaoman, namely because of the night practice she organized. Now then, he can't let her down, and himself included. In fact, the test is not only a test of aura control, but also of mental ability. Moreover, according to the Elder's observation, Lu's spiritual energy should run out very soon. Lu's part of the assignment was completed, so the master received 1,000 points. And this was only the first stage. Lu Xun's strength was really running out, through force, but he continued to hold the brush in his hands and paint on. One of the elders remarked that the youngster was really running out of steam, for he had reached his limit, though he had done quite well. There was no way Lu Xun could stop halfway. He had never even considered it. Surpassing himself, his strength he continued to paint to the surprise of all, and thanks to his diligence, he reached the 3rd level. And further on, drawing brought him pleasure rather than burden. Constantly curved lines were no longer fun to draw, so Lu decided to draw straight lines, which was not difficult. Everyone was dumbfounded that he managed to draw an even line with such a brush. It seemed impossible. Was he blessed? Now that you've managed to control the brush in yourself, you can recognize Lu Xun's limit. Thus Lu Xun went from testing to testing his abilities and began to draw. After 1 hour, he was completely immersed in painting his picture. Everyone around him was already wondering who he was. He has broken through twice recently, and it was a very short time. The drawing was almost done. The system estimated there was not much left to do. Lu Xun finally finished and motioned for the rest of the disciples to come out. After successfully completing the painting, Lu Xun gained even more fans and those who sincerely admired him. Whatever it was, Lu decided not to do it again. His sensations were such that he almost died. Lu's condition after painting like that was not good. It looked like he was about to faint. But he can't afford it now. Otherwise, he will just lose face in front of his fans. In the eyes of many students, he is a role model and a strong man, and he wishes to remain that way forever. But experienced masters can't be fooled. The elder saw that even a talent like him had almost no strength left after such an ordeal. Lily hoped he wouldn't fall, and even if he did, the most important thing was that he didn't fall face first into the ground. Lu Xun's journey had just begun. He should think about what he could do in such a situation. As a friend, he fumbled for something in one of his pockets. It was the same nut that Mao Nunbei had given him. It was cool, and more importantly, it restored his strength. Maybe the kitty had foreseen that he would faint and gave it to him, though it was hard to believe that given her mental capacity. Well, it's time to go back and show the face of a true man. A master cannot faint under any circumstances. The girls were amazed that Uncle still kept his face and remained well. He paid particular attention to Lily, and she was looking at him strangely. What was she thinking? But the ordeal went on, and the next to go. Lily, no one expected her to be a candidate, of course, but all the students supported her. She was a very hard-working student, and everyone wanted to look up to her. Lu Xun immediately began to advise her to paint until she fainted and gave her best effort. Thus, Lu Xun also maintained his divine image. Of course Lily was going to do that, and her main goal was to beat all the women of Lu Xun and become the first. Lu watched the girl with interest, wondering what she was going to do. Was she really that possessive? Lily visibly tensed up and believed in herself. She knew she could do it. In the end, to draw, Lily spent over a quarter of an hour. You could tell from her face that she was glad, but definitely tired. But still, she managed to even draw some beautiful artwork. The students were fascinated by Lily. They thought the girl was just having fun, but she was actually working hard, which was now evident. The first 2 subjects motivated all the other students. They were not going to lose to anyone. Lily felt good because she could relax, but she was relaxed enough to faint. The elder caught her with her magic. She appreciated her hard work, for not everyone could do that. In the crowd, the woman noticed Lu Xun waving at her. She didn't have time to take care of Lily, so she decided to hand the girl over to the young master. Lily immediately found herself in the arms of Lu Xun, who was looking at her worriedly. The guy had one more nut left, so he gave it to Lily to make her feel a little better. This moment was very sweet, as if they were not just friends, but lovers. After all, Lu Xun was now truly caring for the girl as he knew how to do. But Lily was overstepping her bounds a bit, and playfully bit Lu Xun's finger. At this point, the guy felt a little awkward because she licked his hands. The elders themselves felt uneasy, for they were observing a rather intimate moment, but could not quite understand what was going on. They looked closely again, but still didn't realize what was going on there. After a while, all the disciples looked like dead people, even though it was a normal test. Because of the master's uncle, things had gone a bit wrong. Finally, the results of the trial were summarized. The elder was happy to report the results to the remaining conscious Lu and Lily. Lily was the first in the test, which she had not expected. Lu Xun, on the other hand, looked proudly at his favorite ward. It seemed that the clan had a new young master role model. Seeing that Lily had won first place, the students were eager to follow her example. And Lu Xun's image became more and more serious and weighty. He was the #1 person by reputation. The eldest, as proof that Lily had indeed won first place, handed her a green pill that she still couldn't believe. Lu Xun also praised Lily. She really was a smart girl. How could Lu beat her? Of course, without bets too. When Shenyan put his bet on Lily, he didn't miss, and took all the winnings for himself. Certainly it deserved to be his student. The elders' eyes glittered as they looked at Lily. She was indeed a capable and talented student, and it was a sin not to take her on as a student. These masters certainly have good resources, as well as great attitudes towards teaching 1+s. What about the Lord? Nothing. After all, he's incredibly stingy. Understanding the whole situation, Shen urgently looked for a way to distract these masters, or else there would be no disaster. Suddenly, he had an idea, and he suggested discussing a matter. It was to be discussed after the Lord returned, but that wouldn't happen anytime soon, so it was necessary to start now. The masters asked what was the matter, but the Lord kept stalling, and soon he started from far away. When the young man jumped off the mountain, everyone must have felt a strange power. The masters pondered, for it was like this. Even with their combined strength, they couldn't find the source. But the master didn't seem to care much. But the sovereign lord managed to suggest that the Lord might show up and interfere with everything. This situation would be very bad, so they should figure out how to deal with it. No one should be allowed to underestimate the demon clan. The plan was going as it should, so the Lord proceeded to act on it and suggested that the masters have a discussion. Lily was the perfect student for him, and he was willing to go to such lengths for her. After finishing the trial, Lu Xun returned home at sunset, and when he went to bed, it was nightfall. In the past few days, he had managed to accumulate 12,150 points and reached the 4th level. For the sake of this, he had to work hard and splurge for assignments. But now he must save money to improve his skills in the future. He'd worked his ass off today and definitely deserved the sweet sleep he was already drifting into. It wasn't hard to fall asleep, but he found himself in the same place he'd been before. In his dream, the shadow generated by Gu Xiaoman once again appeared. Such an unexpected surprise frightened him. He wouldn't be able to sleep well, and he was in for another tense night. In the morning, he couldn't even walk normally. His body was completely shaking. Lu Xun had fought with the shadow girl 19 times during the night. No wonder he was so shaken today. Mao Nonbei rested and ate her peanuts. She couldn't help but notice the fact that Lu looked as if he had spent a week in a brothel. But with his mood, it was the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Mao Nonbei was just joking around, and Lu understood that, so he didn't hold a grudge. Lu Xun felt nothing, however, the same as before. Only with the update, strangeness is added, otherwise there is no change. Mao Nonbei was very surprised by this for some reason, and Lu started to explain that he couldn't tell that anything special was happening to him, as everything was happening too fast. Kitty remembered that Lu Xun didn't even have a sword. And he was weaker because of it. But Sis could have quickly remedied this situation and given him a sword, for which his brother would have been grateful. But that didn't happen, and Lu was openly hinting at it. Mao Nonbei was shocked at this insolence, but couldn't say anything in response. For some reason, the system suddenly appeared, even though Lu hadn't summoned it. As it turns out, an update was happening and player beta testing was starting. But why soon? Lu looked strange from the side, for he was laughing at someone he didn't understand. In an instant, Mao Nonbei turned into a kitty cat and climbed on her brother, asking him to make her something to eat. Kitty wanted porridge this time, but before he cooked it, Lu asked if she would eat it herself or go to her big sister. After half an hour of cooking, they decided to go to Gu Xiaoman's place after all. The pumpkin porridge was delicious and was a real treat. Lu Xun was only at the 4th level, and something about it made him feel not good at all. He felt, roughly speaking, inferior. So he wanted to raise his level as soon as possible, and there was no point in sprawling out any longer. Before he left, he promised to bring his sister lunch at noon sharp. It was difficult to start improving, but it was exactly what he needed. The older sister wasn't much of a wordsmith, and simply replied that she understood. In any case, this was already progress, because she hadn't said anything to Lu Xun before. Her sister's attitude was changing in front of her eyes, which pleased her brother. Tomorrow is the Mid-Autumn Festival, so Lu Xun asked if the sisters wanted something to eat for the future. Of course, Mao Nonbei was always up for a refresher. There were a lot of food orders, but that's not so important. The important thing is to be sure to feed these two deliciously. Back then, Lu Xun did not yet know that he was no longer alone in the big world. Mao Nunbei was beyond excited, for tomorrow her brother would make lots of delicious food. Kitty began to tell her sister the news from yesterday, about how Lu Xun had taken a sword heart yesterday, but he didn't put his sword to it. Should Mao Nunbei help him in some way? Kitty was fooling around, so she got a lump on her forehead again. It turns out that the sword cultivation technique is hereditary. But was Gu Xiaoman sure of this? Lu Xun looked rather depressed, and the kitty was worried about him. Realizing the whole situation, the sister began to instruct Mao Nunbei, and the latter listened attentively. After reaching his home rather quickly, Lu Xun, without expecting anything, started improving as usual through the pain. Before he could continue, his doors opened as if a hurricane had flown in. It was Mao Nunbei who flew in. Without explaining anything, she put Lu Xun on the floor, sitting down on him more comfortably. She demanded that her brother close his eyes and exhale, and then she started mouthing strange words. Lu Xun could only guess what Mao Nunbei was doing. Afterward, a plaque from the system appeared. It announced that the sword skill had been learned, and the skill level was orange. The elder of the demon sect, the first sword in the world, created the art of swordsmanship, which was later altered by the feline northern and southern demons, and now restored in its true form. Lu Xun couldn't believe his eyes that he had a chance to possess the orange level. After all, it was the best level possible. Now he would learn from it, for it was a great opportunity for his improvement. He was confident that he would be able to curb the art of swordsmanship. However, an upgrade was quite possible. The training was successful, but current progress has been nil. Seeing that his level was 0, Lu Xun turned as pale as a dead man. Lu Xun possessed 10,000 points, and yet he was at level 0. But another 1,500 points and he would be able to obtain the first level. Wouldn't that be great? The young master was not going to stop on his achievements, and continued his improvement despite all the pain. Kitty was surprised that Lu Xun had figured things out rather quickly, and in just a few moments, he had mastered the sword skill. The younger brother seems to have been a genius indeed, as many and now Mao Nunbei believed. Increasing proficiency requires raising a sword, and such a sword can have incredible power. But there are problems here as well. And the problem was that the brother didn't have a sword. Lu Xun felt even more pain when he mastered the art of sword wielding than when he was perfecting it. To be honest, not everyone could endure such pain. Lu Xun, who did not have a sword, absorbed too much aura at once and was unable to release it. And now, he feels like all the blood has been sucked out of his veins and then injected with acid. His heart was pounding at a frantic pace, unaccustomed to such a heavy workload. And Lu Xun himself couldn't understand where he was now and what was going on.